Just do it.
Boy. Yeah, I'm about to well, I was sitting upstairs and yelling at the kids because they got their cousin over,
Mhm.
and so they're going bananas, absolutely fucking ape shit. And I have to get on to them every Wednesday, like, hey, listen, turn the fucking streaming off at 9 because that's when we start recording, right?
Right.
And no streaming after that. And they're supposed to be in bed anyways, little punks. And
Right.
and then I have to tell my wife the same thing too, like, hey. But to her, I'm always like, all right, can you please not stream during this time? I have to be a little bit more cordial to her than I am with the kids. Uh, but yeah, like just now when I was having all these issues with the damn computer and the internet, and I was just about ready to cut everything off because I have access to the router. I have access where I can just turn everything off except for my computer is the only thing that can access the Wi-Fi if need be. So if they start
Oh,
acting silly, I can just cut
power move.
everything off.
Who's in charge now?
Cut their asses off. And Mike is saying that he can hear us both. So
Nice.
fantastic. Well, I'm gonna
So
get
far,
this out of the way
good.
early just so that I don't have to do it later with like a bunch of names. Hey, welcome to the chat, VS, BPT, and Mike in Manitoba. Thank you
That's
guys for joining.
a total cop out, dude.
That is some that is some whack ass buster ass
Some
shit.
butt ass. Yeah.
You know what is some whack ass poo butt ass buster ass shit is I forgot to change the captions, so we're still from last week. I still
You,
represent Jupiter's third moon, and you still
yeah.
banged alien trim on the desert planet. So
You
how,
blew it, dude.
how have you been this week, V? Talk to me.
Oh man, I hurt my back, so I've been laid up. I haven't been doing anything. Like, in fact, I'll be honest with you, and I might have to say that I'm a little ashamed to admit this, but I think yesterday I sat in the same spot like all day. Like I literally just sat in like I literally on my couch and like watched TV all day. That's literally the only thing I did. That. And now I'm like trying to figure out the best like method to get like some sort of relief from this like back pain. So it's like, well, should I call the VA and see if I can schedule an appointment that probably won't happen for like a couple of weeks? And then I'm like, well, then again, marijuana is totally legal in California now. It's not, there's nothing wrong with smoking pot anymore. And I'm sure I can get like a nice indica, that just gives you that body high where it just mellows you out. But it's so expensive now. Like pot is it's taxed here in California, so it's like super expensive. So like yeah, you could it's like when you were in high school and you're like, let me get a dime bag from old, John Jones,
Right.
your local drug dealer, and then he shoots you that like baggie that's like twisted, like where they twist it like 100 times and it's just this
Oh
little itty
yeah,
bitty ball,
you gotta.
and then he passes it to you at lunchtime, with that drug move, you got the stuff, and then you like casually hand it to each other like you're giving each other five, and you really are only giving him $10, right? And see, and here's the other thing too, is my understanding is weed's different now. Like I haven't smoked weed in a long time because it's always been too strong. And like I remember in high school, like I'd smoke like a fucking joint of like what we called swag. I don't know if you know this term swag. You know the term swag?
Well, yeah, I've watched Workaholics. Yeah.
Right, right, right. So then you get it. So it's like what we call swag or bammer weed. It's not like the best weed. And then like the high grade, like chronic, bro, like chronic, bro. Like that's the good stuff. But this is like high school. I'm talking like 90s. You know what I mean? Like
Back when
dude, like
weed was new, as if like weed didn't exist for you know thousands of years before that.
yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Well, to me, at least, all that matters is my, you know,
Yeah, it's like
uh,
a used car. It's new to you, so it's a new
yeah,
car,
yeah, exactly.
new
So
weed.
when I was in high school, I could smoke a joint and get the giggles, where you like giggle, like you don't even know why you're laughing, and you're like, is this a dream? Like that kind of high. And now I've gotten older, and like I smoked a lot of weed in high school, and so I wonder if my tolerance is so high that like it's not gonna affect me. And like the last time I smoked weed, I'll be honest, was probably like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. Um, so I don't know, dude. I'm kind of like, maybe it's not gonna be like what I expect, and but it's totally legal in California, so there's nothing wrong with me smoking weed.
Yeah,
Nobody
you
can
could just.
get upset.
Well, people can get. I'll get upset with you because I think a little highly of you, and if you resort to smoking weed, V, all it takes is one time.
So
I've read if you smoke
it's a
one
gateway.
marijuana, you
It's
smoke
a
one
gateway.
marijuana, you're done.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's the other thing is my sobriety. And you bring up a good point. My sobriety, like I'm sober now since 2017 June, so 3.5 years I'm sober. Like I haven't touched a drug or an alcohol or well, cigarettes and whatever what have yous. I have, but as far as mind enhancements or altering drugs or um, anything that I can snort up my nose or huff through my lungs, I haven't done in a long time.
What about things
And
that you can put in your ass?
well, that's a different story. That doesn't count because you don't get a high from it, I don't think. But
Well, your tolerance for things in your ass is a
yeah,
little higher.
yeah, good one, dude. Good
Yeah,
one.
I
So,
totally burned you, dude.
yeah, you burned me, dude. So what I'm saying is this is I guess my question for you, and I don't mean to like what do you call it, strong arm our duologue into this conversation, but you brought up an interesting question is like ethically, right? Like I'm sober, dude. Like I've been sober and that's an achievement, 3 years. Like I haven't smoked weed, I haven't done any drugs. And mainly my big problem was cocaine, as you know, like I had a cocaine problem, the old booger sugar, like white girl as they call it. And so I'm clean off of that. I won't touch that stuff, because I like not because I don't want to, like not because I don't want to do cocaine, but because it's so expensive. It's so expensive, and like I just can't have that like depleting my funds like it used to. I have bills now, so I can't just go around doing
You're an
cocaine
adult.
willy. Yeah, I'm not some like Wall Street fucking rich ass. Like I can't do cocaine like those people. But
You're
here's
not
the
the
thing: is
president's son or the president-elect's son either. Both of
yeah,
them.
exactly. So I guess my question is like, would that be like that would be affecting my sobriety, right? So if I went and I was like, oh, I need some weed for my back, and they're all, oh, hallucinated disc, huh? Well, I guess you want the old marijuana. I'll prescribe some. And I go, oh, is that what they give it for it now, right? And then I get weed, and then I smoke weed. That I mean, that by default, that my sobriety's done. Like I'm not sober anymore, right? But wouldn't it
Listen,
be the same? Wouldn't it be the same if I were to go to the VA and be like, "Can you guys give me some muscle relaxers and whatever?" And doesn't that mean that my sobriety is gone then too?
so here's my opinion on the matter. Okay, it's a slippery slope. Don't get me wrong, and I don't mean to go full blown after school special on you or anything. Uh,
Okay.
but what I will say is, I had an opiate addiction, right? And where I took, it was one of the hydrocodone or hydrocodone or whatever it was. I'll tell you what, they prescribed it to me not too long ago. Yeah, hydrocodone, and I didn't take it because they gave it to me when I had my tooth pulled,
Right.
and I didn't take it just because I know that I have such an addictive personality. Like if I shake something, like when I quit smoking, right? If I picked up smoking again, I would, which I did. There were times where I quit smoking and I got rid of it for a while, and then as soon as I picked up a cigarette, I was right back into it, full
Right.
blown, right back into smoking cigarettes.
The
Um,
oral fixation, dude.
yeah, and I think
It's like
when it comes to weed, right? Yeah, the oral fixation when I'm blowing
puts
guys.
like things in your mouth. I
Um,
have to try and get you back for the cage.
yeah, I don't blame you because I deserved it. Uh, but but with weed, right? Weed, I think I'm like one of those weird Republicans, right? Quote unquote Republicans,
I
where
know. I know
where
this.
I don't think there's anything wrong with. I recognize the corruption involved in the anti-weed uh,
Right.
legislation and like trying to suppress marijuana. I see it all. Like, I know that they're doing it because it benefits because actually legalizing hemp and the plant, the marijuana plant is fantastic for
Yeah.
like a number of different things.
Multiple pieces. Yeah.
Yeah, it could replace fossil fuel. It could make cheap paper that is just as good as traditional paper that we normally use. Quicker to grow, cheaper to grow. It would destroy the fossil fuel industry. It would destroy the logging industry. It would destroy. I mean, and then whatever the values based shit that they use to bash it or whatever. Like, I don't buy that because I know. I have smoked weed in the past, and I am not addicted to marijuana. I don't think it's an addictive substance. I've never met somebody who was addicted to marijuana. I have met some people.
The FDA says it's non-addictive. The FDA says it's not addictive too.
So I mean, like, all the stuff that it's all clearly just some Republican bullshit to protect their interests in the logging industry, the fossil fuel industry, and a number of other places. But I mean, you could look at the benefits. Do I think CBD oil is anything? No, I think it's like the next what is that, essential oils or snake oil shit, because people are like, oh, take this CBD oil. You'll never hear anybody say anything bad about CBD oil because all they know, it's just like Stephen King, all they know about CBD oil is CBD oil is great. So when they use it, it's like this psychosomatic
placebo effect, right?
And so they take it and you can put it under your tongue and let it soak there, and it supposedly helps you. You can vape it, you can whatever. You can do you can rub it in, like mix it in with moisturizer. Yeah, you can put it in your butt. You can rub it on your gums or whatever.
I'm just like, why hasn't he gone to the butt yet?
I haven't yet. I didn't get there yet.
That's the first place you're gonna put it.
That's where I was going. You stole my joke, which I don't appreciate. But yeah, do I think that's anything? No, but if it makes people feel better, great, whatever. I charge it at a markup and make your quick buck. But CBD oil, I mean, there's something to it apparently because people seem to like it. So all these things, but marijuana, frankly, it doesn't do any real damage. It's less it's less toxic on your organs than cigarette smoke. And we celebrate, we're like, hey, you can go ahead and smoke cigarettes even though we know it kills you. There's plenty of proof that it kills you, and there's no benefits to it whatsoever. Whereas smoking weed, we have all these benefits that we are aware of, but we can't use it because it'll destroy the fossil fuel industry and the logging industry. So I think legalizing marijuana is a great step. However, for guys like us, it can become a gateway drug because you remember the good times that you had when you were participating in these addictions that you had that were mind altering or they did provide a great deal of comfort. And all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm not getting that from weed anymore. I'll just have to go back because I know for a fact painkillers work, right? I know for a fact cocaine is going to be a good time. You get into that mentality, and it's really hard to talk yourself down from that.
That's a really good point because, like my logic today when I was thinking about this, I thought, you know what, I could get weed and just like use that to relax. But the fact of the matter is that I abuse drugs. So if I get drugs, I'm gonna abuse them. Like that's how, like if I went to the doctor and they were like, here's some Ritalin, take it once a day, I'd go, oh, you mean crush it up and snort it? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
That's how I roll. And like that's exactly what I would do if they were like, oh yeah, this will help you to focus, here you go. And then I'd come home and I'd go, oh, so this is supposed to be snorted, right?
Yeah. Well, I want to focus for 3 days worth in one day. So I'm going to go ahead and crush this up, 3 of them.
Exactly. You get it. So what do you got? What that was kind of like that was just random. You said that and then we kind of went off on a tangent. What about you, man?
I have some observational stories I'd like to share.
Oh, okay. I enjoy those.
Yeah, I actually do. I have something that I have to say. First and foremost, we had a donation, our very first donation ever. Somebody who has been a fan of the show, and I feel a little guilty about this. And I know we talked about this, how we kind of forgot about our podcast audience since we switched over to the live stream.
Right.
And I realized something over the last couple weeks, I guess, that we have an audience on podcast who doesn't watch the live stream. They listen to the podcast, and I realized that we have a lot of blue collar, factory workers, dudes that are out in the machine shop, and they listen to the podcast while they're working. And I never thought about that, and that's why some people don't tune into the live show, but they listen to the podcast. And one of them...
And I imagine the whole factory on Tommy Boy just like listening to our podcast.
Somebody actually played our podcast one time in the factory.
Man listening to You Had Me at Bigfoot.
Yeah, somebody did that one time, and they told me about it, and they didn't tell me how it went over, or if it was like well received or anything. I can't imagine it was.
No,
but we had
for me
the too much gay stuff for me. But I asked him, I said, hey, because he sent the donation last night. It was on Bitcoin, as it were, or in Bitcoin. And I asked him, I was like, hey, is it all right if I, thank you publicly for it? And his response, because I said, I don't know how many people want to be associated with the Bitcoin movement, or us for that matter. So he said, you don't have to. So I took that as it would be okay if I thanked him publicly. But yeah, it's at Grugrock, Grugrock, good dude, has some funny content on Twitter. He's been a follower for a while. But he's actually the one, this will tie back into an old episode, or an episode previous to this, it was a couple episodes back. I was bitching about how I lost access to my torrenting sites. And he actually messaged me and said, hey, this is the site that I use to back up my own entertainment. So he sent me, it was LeetX1337X. And it was funny because I said, oh, right on. Well, I found one a couple days ago, whatever. And then I go to check it out, and it was the one that I found. So he has good taste, which... Oh, nice. Is fascinating since he watches our show. You can always tell
the quality of a man by the site of torrents that he uses.
Never judge a man by the color of his skin, but by the content of his torrenting site. Is that the saying that it was?
Yeah, the old adage.
But yeah, he sent Bitcoin, and I want to talk about Bitcoin real quick. So this is my observational story, right? I use Coinbase for trading, buying, selling, trading cryptocurrencies, and they trade a lot of them. They have a lot of them on there, and I actually went through, and they have like the rewards where you can like watch a video, and they'll give you $2 and whatever Ethereum or whatever Bitcoin or whatever cryptocurrency they're trying to peddle and trying to get started or whatever. And so I went through, and actually I gained like $20 in cryptocurrency or whatever, like random cryptocurrencies. But today, like last night when I went to bed, I was sitting at $1,700 for my portfolio. As of 8:00 tonight, I was sitting at like $2,000 for my portfolio. So I like had a pretty good jump. And the thing is, Bitcoin is back in March at the beginning of the pandemic, right? It dropped. I mean, it was already pretty low, but it dropped down to where you could have bought a Bitcoin for $3,000.
I remember that because I was going to like burn you about it, because I remember when you told me, like, I got some Bitcoin, and I was like, it's not going to do good, man. You shouldn't get Bitcoin. And then when it fell down, like it dropped, I was going to be like, yeah, how's that Bitcoin doing?
Yeah, and you didn't. And you're a big man, and I appreciate that. And you took the high road. Because believe me, I was...
You can share the wealth, and I can act like that never happened ever.
Because I was hurting at the time. I was fuming, and my problem was I trusted a lot of the wrong people, right? And it's fun. My brother-in-law, he listens to the show. I shouldn't have said that, but my brother-in-law, he watches the show. He was the guy who got me into it, and he told me when it was low, he said, dude, this is about to skyrocket, you need to get involved now. And I was like, okay. I blew him off. This is back in 2017. I blew him off because I was like, I'm seeing conflicting stuff. I said, I don't know if I'm ready to take the plunge into cryptocurrency and buy into all this yet. And like the next day, it shot up. And this is the 2017 bubble where it like blew up, and it was like at $20,000 or $19,000 for a Bitcoin. And like when he told me to buy, it was nothing. It was next to nothing. You could have had friggin' 4 or 5 Bitcoins for nothing. So I felt really stupid after that. So I bought as it was climbing, and it kind of did like a plateau, and then it started climbing. I bought right there, and it went up for a little bit, and I had made some profit, and I was really excited about that. I was like, man, my first time buying into this, into stocks and all this bullshit. I said, I'm making a profit. Out of nowhere, right? Not out of nowhere. There were plenty of warning signs, but I was ignoring them because, again, I was following the wrong people. I was trusting the wrong people, and it just bottomed out, and it dropped all the way down. Like my portfolio was sitting at $300, right? Like that's all I had in that portfolio, and I just walked away from it. I said, you know what? I said, instead of selling at a loss, I said, I'm just going to let it sit, and maybe in 20 years I'll have made back my money, right? And then as of March, it was still $300, or I'm sorry, 3,000 for the Bitcoin, and my portfolio was sitting at like 300. So I was furious, and I was just done with Bitcoin. But then out of nowhere, and I think it was when we were talking to that dude who was pushing coins, that was around the same time, was when it was so low. Yeah, it was so low back then.
Bitcoin.
Yeah, and out of curiosity, I think somebody may have mentioned Bitcoin in passing, or maybe it was the boys over at Skinwalker Tapes. I was like, man, these guys are always talking about Bitcoin. I wonder how that thing is doing anyways. This is like in September. It started to climb. And so at that point, I think like, November, right around that time was when it shot up, and I was out of the red. I was back in the black, finally in November, thankfully. And, but yeah, here I sit. I'm at 2,000. My goal is
a regular Gordon Gecko.
Yeah, I'm kind of a big deal in the stock trading
industry. You're Leonardo DiCaprio on The Wolf of Wall Street, dude.
Exactly.
You're Donnie Diamond Aazon with the big glasses and the pulling out his wiener.
I would rather be what's his name? Not Woody Harrelson. Matthew McConaughey. You got to pump those numbers up, rookie.
I'll
be that guy.
Chest thing. Yeah. Yeah, that's such a manly thing. You know what my favorite part in that movie in Wolf of Wall Street is?
What's that?
When he takes him into the back of the restaurant and he's all, smoke crack with me, bro. And he does the we gotta fucking run. And then the next part that's the best after that is when they're so messed up off of the lewds and he's trying to get him to get off the phone and he's all, get off the phone, remember? And he's got the cord wrapped up. Are you kidding me? That's like the best scene.
Dude, I watched that movie one time. I need to watch it again. Man. Yeah, I watched it once.
That's a cinematic masterpiece. That's what you call masterwork. Martin Scorsese, dude. You know, if you're, you know what, man? That's so messed up. I can't even talk to you. My reference is lost on you entirely. Is that what you're saying?
You know what? Go ahead and make a reference to The Irishman too.
Oh, I haven't seen that one in a long time. Christopher Walken. That's like
no. Is he in that one? The one with Al Pacino and
oh no, that okay. I'm thinking of Kill the Irishman.
No, a different one.
You're talking about The Irishman with your boy Robert De Niro and with Bob De Niro.
I don't know what to say, really.
It's a pretty good one. It was good. I give you that.
Yeah, I didn't watch it. I haven't watched it yet.
Missing out, dude.
I have it. Haven't watched it yet. I'm a collector.
I know.
But yeah, so we had a donation is what I'm getting at from Grug Rock, and he's a good dude, and and we certainly appreciate his donation. You know what his excuse was? I said, because we're always pushing people to get the t-shirts and all that stuff, and we don't really make anything off of the t-shirts, but it's cool to have people out there with our shirts on and shit. This dude, right? He's when I thanked him for it, he was like, yeah, I figure you get a bigger cut this way, and I don't really wear printed t-shirts anyways, haven't since high school, so just happy. We appreciate the show. Is what he said.
I'm an adult. I don't wear shirts with designs on them anymore.
He doesn't wear. He's not like me who wears goofy T-shirts all the time. Like this dude, he's just like wears button-ups and shit. Like
all of
he's
my shirts are something with an ironic like word on it. Like I have this shirt that's in the mail right now, and it says executive producer Dick Wolf. Like that's all. And then my favorite shirt is the one that says Beefcake Factory.
Did you get that one?
Yeah, I did.
I just
I had
bought
to.
I bought a shirt that says homebody, and then I got another one that says it's just all it is like a square, and it's got like Santa's hand coming up from the corner doing this. That's it.
That's awesome.
So, and then the one I've got on right now, just do it, the with Negan's baseball bat. But yeah, that's what went on. That's what I'm doing with the Bitcoin. Well, what I was gonna do, right, was I was gonna save up to get $500 profit, and then I was gonna cash out some of it and buy a PS5.
Okay.
And then I got greedy. I'm greedy now. I'm currently being greedy because I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna leave it and I'm gonna go for 1,000, get myself a PS5 and an Xbox. So I'm in the greedy state right now, but also I've been reading up on some of these dudes who made some projections way back before Bitcoin was even a thing. They made some very conservative guesses. Well, they were radical at the time, but they ended up coming in under what actually happened. And these dudes now are saying, listen, like I said this back then, ended up being or coming in under what actually happened. You guys called me radical. Here's my projection based on this, and this. And there are some real radical ones out there, like in 20. So the Bitcoin itself right now is 21,366 as of 8 o'clock. And they're projecting that by 2023, anywhere between 50,000 and like 100,000. And then like one dude said in 2025, they were projecting like 400,000 for a single Bitcoin. And these are the dudes that were right and actually came in under what actually happened with Bitcoin. So I'm at a point where I'm like, now do I leave it and hope that they're right? Because right now I only own 1/10 of a Bitcoin, right?
Right.
So still 1/10 of $400,000. That's pay off my friggin' travel trailer in 5 years. You know, that'd be all right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm watching very carefully to see what happens, and I'm gonna end up with a PlayStation 5 and an Xbox out of it, even if it means like selling off as soon as it's about to plummet, and then just using the money I initially invested. Either way, I have this. Right. I have a free system coming to me, and then one that I'll buy out of pocket. Either way, but yeah, that's all I got about Bitcoin.
In 20 years, when like all these people are using Bitcoin to pay for their kids to go to college, you're gonna be like, yeah, well, back in 2020. I totally got a PS5 when I flipped some Bitcoin.
Well, you have to understand. We talked about this last week, right? With the Galactic Federation, and I assume they're going to have some kind of federal currency. At the forefront of this merging of our world's economies, and ours entering into the Galactic Federation, I am going to be one of those guys who like right off the bat gets into hacking into the banks as they're transitioning to this new form of currency. And I'm going to collect all these federal tokens, okay? Mm-hmm. And that's what's going to be used to send my kids to Space University of Andromeda Galaxy, right?
Yeah.
I'm way credits. Ahead of you there. Yeah.
You'll get all your space credits before time.
Yeah. So that's my plan. So I'll still be able to get my PS5 and my Xbox here. I'm not worried about that. That's all I got for Bitcoin. I wrote. I have something written down here. I wanted to talk about Cyberpunk 2077. You're aware of this game, right?
Come on. I know video games. Okay, I know video games, but what I know more is Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know about Cyberpunk 27. It's not a game that I will play. As you know, I'm a big JRPG fan. If it's not from Japan and it doesn't have waifus in it, then I'm probably not going to play it. You know what I mean? But I know about Cyberpunk 2077. If that's what you're asking.
Yeah, well, so that is what I'm asking. But what I wanted to know specifically, in fact, when I asked you, Cyberpunk 2077, do you know of it? What do you know? And you said, is that what you're at? You essentially just asked me, is that what you're asking? That is, in fact, it was a very, like, yes or
So
no
I didn't
easy question.
Your question.
You did the political approach where you're
Yeah.
like, that's an excellent question, Tom. I'm glad you asked me. Cyberpunk 2077, as you understand.
That implied that I know about it, but it doesn't actually mean that I know about it. I know that it's a video game where you can customize the dude's wiener, right?
Yeah, and that's the big topic.
That's the gist. I know Keanu Reeves is in it, and he's awesome. So I don't know. That's the most I know about it. Yeah.
You don't know about it.
My bluff, sir.
Tom, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked. And without questions, we wouldn't have any answers. Without answers, where would we be? I don't know. That's not an America I want to live in. Texas 2020. As if an entire state is running. I would vote for Texas. Well, I'm glad it worked because I wanted to talk about the customizing genitals though. Because people were upset, right? There were some people who were upset about customizing the genitals. And frankly, I was a little concerned because that's the last thing that I'm concerned about. Like, we joke about it. We have a good time talking about wieners and shit. But when I'm playing a video game and
funny.
When my kids are around and we have to customize a character and it's like, what genitals would you like to... Let's customize the genitals. But in their defense, they have an option, apparently, where you can turn off genitals, which is cool. So you don't have to even mess with that part of the customization. You can just be like, no, thank you. I'll pass on the wiener.
The liberal switch.
It's the conservative switch. The conservative switch. If you value Mike Pence and his beliefs or whatever, it's the Mike Pence switch. Actually, is what it's called. You can turn off the penis. But I think that realistically, though, if they went pretty far out there with the customizing of the genitals, right? The penis and the vagina and whatever, and you could do whatever. You can make the giant dick or the flappy vagina. I don't know how in-depth it goes. But I can already tell you it doesn't go far enough. If that was their goal, was to, like, kind of write the book on genital customization in video games, okay? I think the only way they could have beaten it, granted, I would assume you can make the butts a little bit bigger, the hips a little wider. You can really kind of customize to that degree. But what I don't think anyone is talking about is the ability or the lack of ability to customize the anus. And from what I gather, you can make the penis big. You can make it small. You can make it medium size. You can kind of like move it, the customized bar. Can we do the same thing with the anus, and when are we going to recognize that customization of the anus in video games is what's going to actually sell more copies? Is this a patch that we can request in the future? Where are we on the customization of the anuses, V?
So your argument is essentially that we need to be able to adjust the size of a beehole?
Yes. That is where I'm going.
Slider is what you're calling it.
And how would you customize it? Can you make it like looser, tighter, more like a, what's the areola of the butthole? You know, not you know, like
call it the starfish.
But I
mean, the balloon knot.
Right, but you've got the discoloration that extends beyond the anus, right? You know, the discoloration that gets bleached.
You can determine whether it's bleached or not bleached.
Yeah,
right?
And how far out can you go with the butthole areola? Where in the butt crack is it? What?
The brown eye, right? The brown eye. Yeah.
That's what I'm worried about is, it's not like, so if anybody tells me, well, there's only so much you can do with a butthole in customization, I argue that point. We're talking tightness, looseness, size. Is it big? Is it small? Is it the size of the areola of the butthole?
Is it an outie butthole or is it an innie butthole?
An outie or an innie. Is it higher up the crack? Is it lower down the crack? Is it closer to the nutsack? What are we talking about? What's the distance of the taint? What's the length, right? There are plenty of things that you can do with the customization of the anus, and I don't think we're addressing that. And I call on the creators of Cyberpunk 2077 to rectify that. That's
Good
a
one.
little joke I
Good one.
wrote down here on my type 5. Thank you.
Mhm.
And then the other thing that I did want to talk about was oh, by the way, I talked to Jerry today. Remember Jerry from FOJ Live? Talked to him for
Fistful
like
of jokes, right?
yeah. From he was on the You Had Me at Skippy episode. Very funny guy. I talked to him
Yeah,
today
funny guy.
for a
Yeah,
while.
yeah.
But there was one other thing that I wanted to talk about. He sends his love, by the way. I just wanted to say that.
What a guy.
We talked about this last night, about the Bill Gates and Melinda Gates thing. Remember that?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
And I did want to bring that up on the show because it's a conspiracy that I just stumbled upon, and I'm sold. I mean, we kind of already talked about it before. To some degree, not realizing that it was an actual conspiracy, and like it goes deeper than we went, which is a surprise. But so Bill Gates. So here's the conspiracy. I'll give you just a rough rundown. Bill Gates and Melinda Gates died in 2013, and they were replaced by who I don't know, by what I don't know, if they're robots or if they're robots, as he called them. If they were replaced by cyborgs or robots or whatever, or if they're just clones, or if they're other people, doubles, body doubles. Rich people can afford to have body doubles.
Yeah.
But yeah, supposedly they died, and this doesn't come just from Tom Miller's saying some crazy stuff about Bill, because we don't like Bill and Melinda Gates. We don't care for those two, and in fact, we kind of pioneered the whole Bill Gates is the Antichrist movement. So to say that we don't like Bill Gates is not a stretch, and certainly
Right.
it would take us out of the running of being able to create a conspiracy and have it spread far enough before it was shut down by naysayers. Somebody else actually pointed out that if you go on Ancestry.com, and I'll go ahead and pull that up here. If you go on Ancestry.com and you pull up Melinda Gates's information, it shows that she died. It's going to be difficult to see probably, but it's going to show that she died in 2013 at the same time Bill Gates, her husband, because it shows when children are born, when parents died, that sort of thing. It shows that she and Bill died in July of 2013 here. Which, you're like, okay, well, maybe there was some kind of mistake, and we talk about this occasionally where we're like, okay, if it's one thing, maybe there was a mistake or whatever, but if there's more than one thing, you kind of have to start thinking. This actually 2 months before they supposedly died, Bill Gates had this to say: "Death is something we really understand extremely well." This is an article from the Washington Post.
That's odd.
Yeah, in May of 2017. And you may be like, okay, well, that's like, I still am hard pressed to believe that this is an actual that there's any truth to this. But then let me show you something. Here's a picture of Bill Gates and his lovely wife Melinda Gates back in around 2013, and then immediately after there's a picture of Bill and Melinda Gates
It's like
as they are now. And if you can look me in the eyes and tell me that those are the same people, well, I don't know. Nothing's going to change. Like I'm already kind of set in my ways. But I would challenge you to look deep in your own soul and tell yourself that those are not the same people, or that those are the same people.
This is like, it's funny to me. Like, I find it intriguing that this was like you're a part of your Type 5, because this is like, I can add validity to your claim with my topic tonight. So,
and you thought that this was just like a coincidence that it was the last thing that I was going to talk about before I handed it over to you. Did you want to do the joke that we told last night about how they look like it looks like Bill and Melinda Gates on the top, but then it looks like a Saturday Night Live or Mad TV skit about Bill and Melinda Gates, right? And who did you say it was?
Fred Armisen playing Melinda Gates.
And I thought it looked a little bit like Artie Lang.
It's funny because James Pregler in the chat literally said the first thing that I said when I saw that picture. The bottom girl looks like a man. That's exactly what I said.
And that's what makes it so funny, the Saturday Night Live, because, and you know what I realized after we had talked, it wasn't because Artie Lang is a good candidate for that. He looks a little bit different now than he did back when that would have been applicable. You know who he looks like in this bottom picture is Will Forte. Imagine Will Forte in a fat suit.
In a wig.
Yeah.
Forte is the best cross-dresser on Saturday Night Live. He's the one that, like, when you see him, you go, I can see him as a woman.
Yeah. And he always does that. Let me see if I can do the face on the fly where he's always like, he does this face. He's always got that like funny little smirk.
You see and you go, God, I just want to smack that face. I want to smack that face.
So what is the topic tonight, V? Are you ready to kick this? Are you ready to burn this chicken?
Well, yeah. Don't you have a shot you have to take first?
Oh, yeah. I forgot. Otherwise, Mike is going to chew me out. So what are we toasting to? To Will Forte in a fat suit?
Yeah, fair enough. That works.
Well, let me put that picture back up. Oh, I can't. I suddenly realized you have to see me take it. Otherwise, I'm telling you, Mike is like, we're conspiracy theorists. Mike is way worse than we are. He'll be like, I know you didn't take it.
Drinking on the show. Like those people that watch Drunk History and they're like, they're not actually drinking on that show. They're not actually drunk.
We gotta do it.
Like, come on, dude. Like, come on.
We gotta do it. So why are so many famous people's wives end up looking like dudes? For example, Michelle Obama.
Michael Obama.
Yeah. There was another one. Who is it? Chuck Schumer, right? His wife looks just like a dude. I'll pull up a picture of his wife here in a minute. Or like that joke from Family Guy when they're making they said, gosh, what was it? Brian was doing something and he made a joke, or it cut to a cutaway of Jeb Bush calling his wife in, and Consuelo walks in. And then it cuts back to them and he's like, Stewie. It's like, what? That's what his wife looks like. And he's like, I know what she looks like.
It's Consuelo. No, I stay. No,
Mr. Peter, no home.
Oh, man.
All right, so what do you got, V? Talk to me, Goose.
Well, as you know, I really have been dying to do this topic because I'm something of the subject matter expert on this. And to go back a few years, I recently discovered this because I watched one of our, we watched those Kyrgyzstan videos, where it's the cartoon and then the little ducks, they explain to you something like of like super scientific proportion that like you couldn't fathom. Your tiny brain can't fathom.
And you know what's funny is grown men like us have to take our science lessons from tiny little birds on a cartoon.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So that's how I found out about it. It was called The Cure for Aging was the name of the video. So if you ever get a chance to look it up, The Cure for Aging is the video. Maybe I'll post it later on the Twitter there. But I had watched this video because, to go back to my core beliefs, and I'll probably talk a lot about my core beliefs tonight. So expect a lot of like subjective arguments to go with what I'm talking about. So basically what it is eventually we are going to be able to cure aging, right? And so what I'd like to do, I'd like to live forever. And it's no secret that I want to be immortal and live forever and, be able to just keep gaining knowledge. I hate the idea that like I have to eat and sleep. Like to me, it just seems so time consuming. Like there's got to be some other way to where I don't have to like sit here and freaking, have to, put time aside so that I can do things that I don't want to do. I can just do them all in order and then, keep gaining knowledge until I'm like 1,000,000 years old and like, super genius or whatever. So anyways, I digress. I'm kind of rambling, I guess, on that. So I want to talk about the 2045 initiative, which I've touched on a little bit throughout the show before. So let's see here. We can start with what we'll start with is the world's smartest cripple, Well, the once smartest cripple on the planet, Stephen Hawking, he once said that in 2045 we're going to make a technological leap so far, and I'm paraphrasing, obviously, a technological leap so far in the future, and this is 2045, that we can't even fathom it right now. It's something that like when we think of like science fiction and like fantasy and we go, that's what the future is like. Like, we watch old movies and we go, oh, Star Trek, that's how we got cell phones or whatever. And I'm always going to default to movies, so expect a lot of that tonight too. So we go, well, what was I talking about? I lost what I was talking about. Where are you at, dude? Give me
I'm here.
Throw me a bone. I need an interject. So to kind of go with what the famous cripple, the smartest cripple on the planet, what's his name? Stephen Hawking. He believed that we're going to make this technological jump. Yeah, robot voice. We're going to make a technological jump into our like something we can't even fathom, 2045. Right. So that was his prediction before he died. Of being crippled or what? How did he die? Do you know how he died? I know he's crippled.
Well, he had a lot of issues that were. I mean, he died of complications from whatever crazy ass disease that he had. What was it? MS. He had some crazy thing. No,
I just thought he was like a really smart retard or something.
No, the thing about him is he. I want to put this up here real quick while I'm talking. No, Governor Jeff or Governor Jeb No Home.
No, I stayed.
If you didn't know what Jeb Bush's wife looked like, now you do. Now you can appreciate that joke. No, he was a regular dude for a long time, and there's a movie about him and about his.
I was gonna say that I didn't see that one.
I didn't either.
It looked lame. It was gay.
Well, I think that Stephen Hawking was lame and gay too. But so the movie was pretty much on par with who Stephen Hawking was as a human being.
It was historically accurate.
And what's especially funny about him was there was a picture I saved years and years ago where it shows him where he's all like with his mouth all hanging open, his jaw sideways and shit, and it said Stephen Hawking says there is no God. And I'm like, well, I would probably say that too if I looked like Stephen Hawking, but
you're confined to a wheelchair and your teeth are all hanging out of your face and you're not trying to be like that.
He's but no, he had he was like a normal dude up and walking around, and then he developed this. I think it was like a genetic thing. I don't think it was anything that he caught or anything. It was just like any an autoimmune thing or whatever, where it just affected him over the years, and it turned him into a cripple. But he was actually already well on his way to being a super genius before it set in. I think he was also a total shitbag. I think he used to beat his wife or whatever, or he cheated on his first wife with this new chick. Asshole. Yeah, I mean, he wasn't the kind of guy that you would look at and be like, oh, that's the beacon of hope in science and shit. That's a role model, right? You would look at him and be like, well, he's a smart guy, but he's a fucking dick. And you can tell just based off of the way he would talk to people, even as a robot, that he was just kind of a dick, all along. And, but yeah, I've read his stuff. Smart guy. There's no denying he knew his shit. But he died. And I think the greatest snub that God ever pulled on Stephen Hawking was Stephen Hawking is the guy who discovered the black hole, right? Or theorized it. And the greatest snub that God ever pulled was he killed Stephen Hawking right before we were able to get a picture of a black hole. And so he would have been able to see it and see his life's work and all this shit, but God went ahead and
they're like, that's what you get for beating your wife, you asshole.
That's what you get for just being a total science dickbag.
So in spite of you discrediting my source's personality,
I didn't discredit him. I didn't discredit him. He's a smart guy.
No. Yeah. I mean, in spite of but if somebody's an asshole, I'm inclined not to believe what they say. But
I'm the opposite. Frankly, I'm if somebody's an ass. So here's a funny story, real quick, and I don't mean to cut and do your thing. Somebody told me not too long ago about physicians, and he was relating physicians to government, and how like your values and your religious preference or whatever is important for, you know, like your family doctor, because you engage with them on a personal level, and you work with them or whatever. So you kind of like vote in local elections, and maybe like your representatives who go to Washington or whatever on your behalf, you vote your ethics in those people. But for positions like governor or the president or whatever, those are surgeons, okay? Frankly, it doesn't matter what their opinions are, because they need to be good at what they're good at, and that rarely has anything to do with values. So the same thing is true with science, right? You have like your teachers. You would like your teachers in your local community who engage with your kids to be of the same value set as you are, because you want that to reflect on your kids. Whereas the scientists who are doing the studies and discovering the stuff, who gives a shit? Because if they're out there and they're determining things that we need to know, I don't care if they're an atheist. I don't care if they're a Christian. I don't care if they're Muslim. Let's be honest, it's never a Muslim. But they, who cares? So like when Stephen Hawking, total dickbag, piece of shit, asshole, very knowledgeable about what he was looking for. And like, it's the bedside manner that I can do without. If somebody's a dick, but they're a good surgeon, I don't care if they come up to my bed to check on the wounds after a surgery and they just grumble at me while they're checking, because I'm not going to talk to my surgeon other than him saying, hey, make sure you keep this clean. Okay, you got it. I'll talk to the nurses. I'll talk to the people who have bedside manner. The surgeon, I need him to deliver in the operating room. That's it. Like, if I never have to talk to that guy again. Same thing is true of Stephen Hawking and like the dick scientist. Like, if you're a dick and you're a scientist and you're super smart, super knowledgeable, and you can back up whatever you've got with something else that I can appreciate, I'll take that. And I'll take that over somebody who's nice and tells me, what I want to hear or whatever. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So now that there's credibility back into my,
but seriously, fuck that guy.
Yeah. But he basically more or less said that we were going to merge with our technology, and we would become what is called what he referred to as Robo Sapiens. Now, before you go Googling Robo Sapiens, there is it's like a strange toy that came out in the 90s or early 2000s that was a Robo Sapien, and apparently it was like a little robot that was like that toy dog. Because I admittedly was looking for a picture that we could use for Robo Sapien, but that is not the Robo Sapien.
the one that flips, are you talking about?
Yeah, the one that flips. Robo Sapien, right? We're going to merge with our technology, which doesn't really seem that, like, when you see what we're doing now with our technology, aside from the random person that puts the phone up their ass, there's not much you can't argue about us merging with our technology.
Just say my name next time,
You specifically.
When I put the phone up my ass.
Yeah, when you specifically. Yeah. So that's what I'm getting at here. The 2045 initiative is essentially that. Right? It's our goal. It's the research. Okay, so to put it simply, the 2045 initiative is the research and with the goal of curing aging and making humans immortal, essentially. So with that being said, we'll start talking about the actual what do you call it? I don't know. I don't want to say it's like the people that do the research. What do you call those guys? What do you call the people that do the research?
Nerds.
Nerds. I guess the nerds that are looking. I was trying to think of like an inclusive word that wasn't like racist. The guys that are doing this, the ones that are doing the research right now, the studiers, the researchers, these people. It's called the 2045 initiative, which interestingly, now here's where it gets interesting. It's head up by a Russian billionaire. This guy, Dmitry Itskov, which I think we have a picture. Do you have a picture?
We do. I can go ahead and pull him up right now, as a matter of fact.
Dmitry Itskov is this guy. Author of I, Robot, maybe. Yeah, Dmitry Itskov is this Russian billionaire who, in his 20s, experienced something of a spiritual awakening. It said, and this is a rumor that he had a moment where he saw God, and ever since then, this Russian man, has been pouring all of his money, which he gained from like I guess like trading, like day trading or whatever, the stuff that you're into.
Trading Bitcoin, yeah, he was.
Yeah, trading Bitcoin. So he made like billions doing this, and then he had this spiritual awakening, and all of a sudden was like, I need to be immortal. I need to figure out how I can like be immortal. And so he started like dumping all of his money into the research for curing aging.
You know what it was?
Which,
Is he was waiting on those projections, the Bitcoin projections, and he
yeah,
said, in order for me to actually see a return on my investment into Bitcoin, I need to live forever. So I can actually make a couple bucks off of this damn venture.
yeah, that's right. Because Bitcoin won't be worth anything until we're in the Galactic Federation, and it's part of the space credits currency.
I will have sold out and gotten my PlayStation 5 by then,
Yeah,
so you know.
yeah, exactly. So we've made progress on this research, and I'll admit to you this, that I've actually donated some money myself over the years to the cure for aging. I owe something, and I apologize for having a lack of
You're terrible at shilling for this
I know, I'm
robot guy.
terrible. It's iosomething.com, where you can go donate to the 2045 initiative. Well, to be fair, if you want the information on this, you can literally just type in 2045initiative.com, and it'll take you to the site where you can find out all the information that I'm about to give you the gist of, or a you had me at Bigfoot style information about how you can become immortal, essentially. And so
You heard it here, like 18th. Like we're like the last
yeah,
people to tell you about it.
yeah. Yeah, this is how you become immortal. I'm going to tell you right now. This is how you become immortal, provided that you have the money to preserve what needs to be preserved. So there are 5 different methods that you can invest in. I think we have a slide for this one. I think
We do
it is
indeed. Hold on a second.
yeah, number 4. Number 4.
All right.
Go.
I'm going as fast as I can here.
Yeah.
All right, there we go.
The 45 Avatar project milestone. So where we're at right now, 2015, 2020, a robotic copy of a human remotely controlled via BCI. So we can bring in the number 2 one now, Tom. Which this is the one that is like the Surrogates. If you've ever seen the Surrogates with Bruce Willis, where he wears that hilarious toupee. Remember?
Yeah.
He wears that hilarious toupee through the whole movie. Well, basically, what it is they put you in this yeah, they put you in this chair, right? And then you remotely control a robot with like human skin. So I think we have another image for that from iRobot, the cyborg one, number 7, Tom.
Coming at you.
Yeah. And so essentially, what it'll be is you'll be in this chair, right? And you can control this robot from a distance, and so the robot's out walking around while you're sitting festering in the chair all old,
stinking in your own urine.
yeah peeing into like whatever lets you pee into it, and then you have this handsome whatever robot that you can go out and bang all the supermodels as, even though you're the fat whatever what do you call it, the mouth breather that is like barely fitting in the chair.
Reminds me of that movie Gamer with Gerard Buttcheeks.
Gamer, Gerard Buttcheeks. It's similar to that because the remote control, I guess you could say. But in that one, it was real people that he was controlling.
That's right.
And in this idea, you'd be controlling a completely like robotic body. But like I guess you'd be able to have sex. I'm hoping that you are able to have sex, because this is the one that I'm not leaning to, given that is that I'm able to have sex and feel the sensation of pounding vagine, as you would say.
Yeah, you got to have some kind of sensation coming from it, right?
Yeah. So supposedly this is the one that we're closest to, is being able to control a robot remotely from a chair, right? 2020 is what they're saying. And from what I understand from the things that I've read, 2021 next year will be a lot closer to a few other things. And so the second, back to the milestones, um, the second one that we'll be able to do in 2025, in between 20 and 2025, is an avatar in which a human brain is transplanted at the end of one's life. So this is I guess would be the actual cyborg one, right? This is like Universal Soldier, I guess. And I couldn't think of a good. This is the one that I had a hard time like connecting a movie to. So feel free to jump in if you can think of a movie, because that's how I think as movie references.
Jay Coop brought it up. He said that he hopes that V brings up Altered Carbon and how they portrayed living forever in the future.
I never saw Altered Carbon. I never saw that.
So I watched the first, much of the first season, and it sounds a lot like and here was where it kind of like got into some weird implications, and it was actually covered in the show. And it got into the theological implications of like people who are, because you get your chip or your soul, right, put into a chip, and then the chip is put into a new body, and then the bodies are, I guess these are like real people that they get reinserted into, and your soul or whatever kind of takes over this host body. And people I think they called it the cloud or something. It's been a long time since I've watched it, but they basically move you from your current body that is either dying or whatever. When you die, they upload you into a new body, and so it's kind of along the same lines of what you're talking about.
Like Chappie. Remember they did that at the end of Chappie? Did you watch Chappie?
I didn't yet. I have it.
Oh,
I haven't
man.
watched it yet.
You swine, you whore.
No, and I like the dude. Blomkamp, right? Is the dude's name?
I thought you liked that guy. I would have figured that is one of the movies I do. Yeah, that's the Chappie then. Okay, so in Chappie, at the end of the movie, the scientist, I was going to say Habib, but he's more of like a, what is the racial epithet for an Indian? Apu?
Street shitter?
No, there's a better one.
Red dot.
No. There's a word. It starts with a Punjab.
Oh, there you go. Well, that's not a racist thing. That's just a thing. Like we call them Punjabi. Punjabi, right? You call them Punjabi.
I thought that was racist. I thought now I'm disappointed. Maybe. I like Punjab.
Well, I mean, I used to call them Punjabi DJ because Punjabi DJ is like.
The Punjab at the end of Chappie, he dies. And what Chappie does, and I'm spoiling it for you. If you haven't watched this movie, then I hate to break it to you, but I'm going to spoil the end. At the end, he dies, and then the Chappie, the robot, is able to transfer his consciousness or his brain, right, to a robot. Which now they've made progress with this. They showed it on Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan had this show. It was called Joe Rogan Asks Everything. And they show it's called Robo Sapien episode. So be sure to watch that one. This is good reference material where he talks about Robo Sapiens. And they have this bust of this. It's a black lady too, right? The guy, when his wife died, he wanted to preserve her. So he was able to, through like computers, right? And this is me. It's for the layman. Beep, boop, beep, beep. Through the use of computers, he was able to put, and I don't know how accurate this statement is, but he was able to put either a copy of her consciousness or somehow copy her consciousness into computer code. And so with that, he transferred it to this bust of her, and it looks like her, right? It's like this robotic bust of his ex-wife. And because he was able to transfer all this data, the bust reacts to him in ways like it responds to his questions, right? Sort of like those bots where you go onto that site, right? And it's the chat bot and you just talk to it and then it can respond to you. So it takes all her predilections and it turns it into this chat bot, right? So that we're actually making progress on that one.
Oh, like so this is a real thing that happened.
This is a real thing. You can see it on Joe Rogan. It was on the Sci-Fi Channel. It was called Joe Rogan Asks Everything, and you can check me on that one. That's basically what happened. Is the guy was able to do it. So this is the other one, right? This is the other method. This is Avatar B, right? This is what we're getting closer to, right? So Avatar C, right? So let's bring back up the what have you, the milestones. Avatar C is an avatar with an artificial brain in which a human personality is transferred at the end of one's life. So that one is Chappie. So Avatar B is the physical brain. So that's the cyborg, right? That's Universal Soldier. That's or Terminator Revelations, right? What's the dude? Sam Worthington.
You mean Terminator New Fate or Fate Dark Fate?
No, not that garbage piece of. We're talking about the one with Muslim Bale here.
We're talking about the good one. Gosh darn it.
Yeah, we're talking about the good. So the cyborg would be Avatar B, and the Avatar C would be your digital consciousness inside of a robot. So you're full robot in Avatar C, you're cyborg in Avatar B. So we're pushing the line here, right? Avatar A is you're still your own body, you're just controlling a robot. Avatar B is you're half robot. Avatar C is you're straight robot, right? Avatar C 2030, 2035, you're straight robot, right? Which is, I mean, essentially like iRobot, right? That's what we're getting at here with the
yeah. So you're you're this fella right here.
Yeah, you're this fella right here. That's what you look like. Well, and to
except you're not black, right? Let's hope, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So this is take heed. For those of you that are concerned that you will look like the robots from iRobot, I assure you that this is the imagination of whoever Steven Spielberg made the movie.
Well, it was this guy, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's what they think it's going to look like. But keep in mind, our technology is so far in advance, even now, beyond what we thought was in that movie in the 90s, 2000s, that I assure you will look like a human, and you won't look like some robotified robot, as you put earlier.
A robot?
Yeah, robot. And the last one is interesting to me. This one is it's basically a hologram avatar. So this is the one where you don't have a form, right? This is not you're not physical anymore. This is the one where they take your consciousness and they put it into the computer, and then they throw you into a virtual reality where you'll spend the rest of your life living a fantasy, essentially. And that would be closest to Ready Player One, right, where he goes to the Oasis, right? Ready Player One, which is an amazing movie. If you haven't seen Ready Player One, I assure you to watch it because it's one of the greatest movies that I've seen in a long time. And this one is the one that I'm partial to because obviously it's very video game-like. And for those of you that know me, you know that I would totally love to be in some sort of Sword Art Online video game where I'm basically stuck in a video game. And this is the closest thing to that, is becoming a hologram and being inserted into some sort of digital world. Another way to illustrate that would be if you ever watched Archer. You remember Archer with Krieger? He's got the hologram wife, right? Hologram wife. What is? Yeah, the waifu. Does anybody remember? Does anybody remember what that character's name is? I forget. I do love that show, but I can't remember that obscure character's name.
I can't remember it. And
so
everybody I had my audio muted, so they didn't hear me do the. I had a chance to do it better that time, and I fucked it up. But whatever.
Yeah, you did it again, anyways. So now that we know the methods to become immortal, this is how you become immortal, right? This is the goal. Now the question is price, right? You could actually start investing in this now. If you have a little bit of money, you can start donating to some of the projects. Like there's ones where they're trying to find ways to stop cells from dying in our body so that we don't ever get old. And good news for those of you who are balding like myself, a lot of the progress that they've made into this these various pills, the stuff that they've tested on rats, is they've discovered that once they find the cure for aging, they'll also find the cure for baldness. So rest assured, by 2045, we won't have to worry about
So
baldness either.
there's some benefit to donating to this other than trying to create your own avatar, your own internet version of yourself. I do want to interrupt you real quick,
Please do.
and there was something in here. James Pregler, by the way, James Pregler, God bless him. He was like, "Hey, everybody, stop! If you haven't already, go and like the video." So we appreciate that about you guys.
Yeah,
Or you
damn
jumping
decent
in.
of you.
Yeah, that was
What a
a
guy.
really cool thing. He asked about China's super soldiers. Is that something that you're tracking as part of this 2045 initiative, V?
I've done a little bit of research on it. I don't know that it pertains to this. But I'm keeping up with it, but I know the gist. It's kind of like the political question, when you ask, and I go, I know a little bit, but I don't really actually know anything.
That's a great question, James, and I'm glad you asked it. Because if not for questions, we wouldn't have answers. Without answers, I don't know if that's an America I want to live in. Texas 2020. That's going to be my new
so
thing.
You can donate. Essentially, you can donate money to this, which I have over the years. $10 a month I've donated to the Cure for Aging. But what you can also do is you can book your avatar now. If you are a millionaire, now this is where we go back. This is where we go back to Bill Gates and Linda Gates, or Melinda Gates, Fred Armisen dressed up as
Will
Melinda.
Forte in a fat suit.
Yeah. So we go back to that. You can book it now. If you have millions of dollars, in fact, I think the cheapest one is the chair where you can remotely control a robot. The cheapest one is $2 million. So if you're Bill Gates rich, you can afford to have a robot that you control right now. Now this is where I put my tinfoil hat and I jump on your side. We don't know that this isn't available now. According to the website, in from 2015 to 2020, so right now, that is available. You can literally buy an avatar that you can control remotely. So this is where I jump into your tinfoil hat camp and I go, are there fucking robots out there now?
Yeah, man, come on in, dip your toe. The water is warm.
So there's the validity that I added to your claim. That if anything, Bill Gates and this is where I go, the hypothesis that is educated. If Bill and Melinda Gates are dead and they're not actually who they say they are, the logical course is that they're robots being controlled by somebody else in a chair somewhere.
Or by Bill Gates in a chair, right?
Or by Bill Gates in a chair, right. Both of them. He could be dual boxing, as they say, for those of you gamers. He's controlling two avatars at once.
What if and I want to touch on something. There's some stuff going on in the chat, and I want to make sure that we talk about everybody who's in the chat, because people have had some good comments in the chat.
Please do.
First of all, VS says, when you didn't buy the premium package and your in-game hologram body has sponsor logos all over it, you're the guy who's like dead and in your avatar body, your hologram form in cyberspace, cyberspace land, and you've got the pop-up ads and everything popping up. But then James Pregler again says, he says Black Mirror has an episode where they upload you into a virtual reality. So, and this is something that I don't know if you've watched the Black Mirror. I know you have like an active stance against Netflix, as we all should, but based off of their support of pedophilia. But I will say that Black Mirror is one of my favorite series because it is just so fucking weird. And it will leave you, most of the episodes will leave you with like this existential crisis of some sort. And for those who don't know what Black Mirror is, it's a series, but each episode is movie length almost, feature film length, at least an hour long, upwards of an hour and a half. And your boy John Hamm is in one of the episodes, one of the really good episodes too.
Old Big Dick Ham.
Yeah, he's in one of them. And he's in one that will definitely leave you with this existential crisis and like this horrible feeling. And again, I don't want to spoil it, but so that whole series is it's kind of about like the near future, and some of the stuff that you're talking about right now plays a big role in some of the episodes. And some of them, jokingly, somebody had said at one point, well, I don't want, this new episode of Black Mirror where they turn somebody into an email or something. Like, they actually, like, extract people's sentience and put them into, for instance, one of them, and I'll give you the gist of the John Hamm one. They have, like, this little device that is kind of like a Google Home, where they take an image of your brain as it is at the moment that you opt into this program, and they put it into a computer system, and a computerized version of you is inside this machine, this little iHome, little Google Home thing, and it monitors and deals with all your daily stuff, like how you say, hey, Google Home, I want my toast, prepare me a piece of toast. And it will prepare it the way that you like it. Or, hey, turn the lights down a little bit. And it knows what you mean when you say, well, turn the lights down a little bit. And it means not all the way, it means not, they know exactly where you want it because they're you. But the problem is this computerized version of you doesn't realize that it's a computerized version of you. It thinks that it's you. So it reacts in this panicky way where it's like, what am I doing in here? Why am I here? What's going on? And John Hamm's job in it is to break the computerized version of you. And to where it's willing to do your bidding, and he does it through some pretty strict, like, harsh punishments that are nothing to him, but to the Avatar are awful, just terrible. So I recommend watching it.
Yeah, that sounds like one hell of a hook. That's pretty good. I'd watch that.
And the thing is, all the episodes, not all of them, but most of the episodes, because it's like they're written by people who just have weird senses of what's going to happen in the upcoming years, and especially with the transfer to this digital, more digital age than we're already in. And they're very scary, like when you think about it, and it gives you the alternate version of it rather than like, because the version of her in the show that is not the Avatar is just like oblivious to everything that's going on. She doesn't care. Like, she doesn't know. She's just part of the program.
I love that in the chat there are people that are going. James Prager goes, Alexa, favorite porno. Alexa, Mia Khalifa hologram.
Right.
Yeah, we're not that far from that. Believe me, that's like in the next couple of years, man. You'll be able to bang holograms like pretty soon. And women will be phased out. You'll be...
And that's so funny to me too, because women talk about, oh, well, try and get your sex doll to make you dinner or clean up around the house or do the laundry, and you're like, dude, you don't even do that already. Like, like I'm not losing anything by having a sex doll.
Like that chick that was jumped in the chat last week, and she was like, nothing can replace the feel of a real whatever. Well, and I was like, well, we can at some point. We'll be able to.
And then they're like, well, you have to, like, women are required for reproduction. Well, that's not true, because there are those devices that they've created that they've actually started using in some Chinese land, right? Like, whether it's Japan, I want to say it's actually Japan. But the wombs, the artificial wombs, where you can watch the baby develop in this artificial womb. And like, so women are being phased out entirely. There are plenty of egg donors. I mean, you'll have to pay for, obviously, but the thing is, with women becoming obsolete in that way, they won't have the luxury of like just marrying into protection. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of women do. They'll marry for security and stability. Women won't have that luxury anymore. They'll have to sell their eggs, you know, and then men
step their game up.
Yeah, men will be able to buy these eggs and then just utilize their seed, and they'll buy, you know, there will be like women who were, oh, well, this woman is actually an intelligent woman. This is a woman who is very beautiful. Here's a picture of her. And you can go through and pick based on your price range. It'll be like buying a car. You can buy eggs that way, artificially inseminate, boom, have your little, you know, your little device in the living room where you can watch your baby growing up, and then when it's born, you know, then you don't have to deal with, you know, you would obviously raise a child or whatever, or even you just have yourself a trophy wife, and you know, you don't have to worry about her losing her figure and all that.
That's my goal for sure. I'm down with that.
I think that's closer then I think so. Let me say this. I think all the stuff that you're saying right now, I think it's very feasible. And I think it's coming very soon. And I think this whole making women obsolete, I think that's also that's just not as publicized, right? Because nobody wants to alienate women. Because when you alienate 50% of the population, that hurts your business model, right?
Yeah.
That's right. So, and even the men who are left over within your demographic, it's still harmful because there's going to be a bunch of them that are very effeminate and very like, well, I'm for women's rights and, all that gay shit. So,
right.
What else you got, V? What else we got?
Well, that's the gist of the meat and potatoes of the 2045 project. The avatars A through D. Essentially, I think the cheapest one is 2 million. Whereas I think the hologram is like 10 million.
Oh,
so they go up from A to D, right? I don't remember why I had that one, the Elon Musk one. Oh, you know why? Because Elon Musk also agrees. Elon Musk is the one that said that we're going to transition into Robo Sapien. Also, interestingly, referring back to your Bitcoin, he also said that Bitcoin is where it's at. Like he also said that like we should just be buying Bitcoin right now. So
nice.
to just kind of add to what you're saying. So here's now that we know how to become immortal, right? Now that we know how to become immortal, my question for you, and this is like now I know you, so I know that you sometimes want to die.
You're like the salesman all of a sudden. You're like, oh, well, we're here.
I'm gonna sell you an avatar. I'm going to sell you an avatar. And that's basically what our game will be here is I want you've been perusing the 2045 initiative and you're not sure if you want to buy an avatar, but you're thinking about it because you have great grandkids and you'd love to see your great grandkids and you're enjoying being like the top of the patriarchy, especially in your family. So you've come into the store, right? The avatar store, and there I am, right, with my super futuristic suit and like my Tron-esque clothing where there's like neon everywhere, like glowing neon all over my clothes.
Oh yeah.
And like, the door opens and it like, right, and you come in and I'm going.
Oh. I think of it more like a.
Yeah, or right, or what is the one on Star Wars that goes?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
Yeah,
one.
Yeah, that was pretty good. So you come in and you've got the brochures.
Because I've done my homework, right?
You've done your homework, and you come to me, and I go, "Hi, Mr. Miller, how can I help you today?" And then you would ask me the questions that you have about the avatars. And now the one that you're leaning towards, right?
Does it come with the DVD player?
Yeah, the question here is we're not gonna go with you just don't want to be immortal, because I know sometimes you kind of want to die. Unlike me, who I want to be immortal, and I'll tell you mine at the end. After we've put you in your brand new avatar, then we'll talk about mine. So feel free to ask questions that you have. We'll start it like this. How can I help you today, sir?
Oh, so you want me to be the actual customer?
Yeah, you're the actual customer looking at buying an avatar.
Well, as Mike said in the chat, he brings up a point from the theological perspective, and that's obviously my big concern. He says there's only one way to become immortal that I know of, and it ain't going to cost me a penny. And he's referring to, obviously, eternal life, right, after death. And that's my concern. Really my only concern with Avatar. So it ties together, I suppose, in that way. Because I am terrified of eternity, regardless of heaven, hell, Avatar. Regardless, I am terrified of eternity. I don't know what it is that stresses me out about the idea of living forever. And never ending, never having. Maybe it's because I need some kind of closure, or it comes from my claustrophobia and not being able to have some kind of control over it, and the fear of just never ending. It causes panic attacks, right? But primarily, as a Christian, I wonder what are the theological implications that come from trying to live forever on Earth, right? Am I able to turn it off at some point? And does this in any way affect my eternal salvation? I guess that's
So
my big concern.
So yeah, no, and I can answer your question there. What you're asking essentially is even though I'll be immortal, will I eventually be able to die if I want to?
Yeah, that's one. That's part of the question. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure there'll be a way. And James Pregler actually brought up an interesting question, which kind of goes along with that. Is he said, so could people's avatars get hacked? And I assure you that that will be a problem in the future. Hacking is that's the new crime, man. Like we're pirates. We steal our movies off the internet. Can you imagine in the future when everything is digital and everything is technology based? Everything will be hacked. We're talking Mega Man Battle Network. You'll be inserting your phone into your oven to delete viruses with your freaking avatar that you control remotely. That's what's going to happen. Is there's going to be viruses and hackings everywhere. As far as your theological question goes, and I was prepared for this because I knew you'd come at me with some theological stuff. Was that this brings up the question of whether or not we have a soul, which is undetermined, right? We can't. No one can really say if we have a soul or not. Although there are various chemists and scientists that can't account for a specific amount of weight in our body.
21 grams is what it is.
That's right. That leaves our body when we die. And according to science and physics, energy does not disappear. It just redirects, right? So if we're beings of energy, then something has to happen to our energy. So, and this is where I get my agnostic stuff on you, right? Like, I don't know, but here's the evidence that says it's possible, right? I don't know, like, and I can't say that you're wrong. I can't say that there isn't a soul, right? This is the honest salesman, right? That's coming at you going, look, man, I'm with you. I don't know if we have a soul or not. If we do, then let's hope that we can preserve it. Let's hope that someday we'll be able to figure out a way to redirect that energy in some sort of, whatever. I hope that one day that like it's not as simple as we just go to heaven. It's like we make deals and we negotiate with angels and God to like stay on earth. Like, well, I really like banging whores, so I don't really want to go into heaven where it's just like plain.
That's already a thing, right? Dave taught us that. That's already a thing.
Yeah, exactly. So my question for you is this. Assuming that we can do that, and trust me, I'll find out for you. I'll find out the answer to your question, and I'll get back to you, right, as the salesman does.
You got to go to the tower and ask.
And so now I redirect you. I go, so which avatar were you looking at? Which one were you thinking about?
I would... if I were to do this, right, here's my tough customer, right? If I were to do this, okay, I'm looking at, I'm not a wealthy man, all right? I'm going to have to take probably whatever you've got for me, but under the assumption that I can make alterations as I go. Because I understand as an avatar, right, I'll be able to continue working if I want, but I don't have to, but I can if I want to, like, make more money so that I can make upgrades. Can I make upgrades to my avatar, and can I relocate my my sentience into a new avatar if I were to make enough money to do so?
Absolutely,
is that a possibility?
Absolutely. Upgrades are possible every 2 years. You'll have a contract just like a cell phone, and you'll be able to upgrade every 2 years with a new pristine top of the line avatar, right? And actually, it's interesting your question. To veer off a little bit, it does bring up some theological stuff. And again, James Pregler with all the good questions tonight, asking about our avatars real people and not just AI programmed to be. That's something that I've questioned too. Like the one where it's a robot bust and it's the lady's consciousness programmed. How do we know that that's her and it's not just mimicking, right? Like what's to determine? It's like the clone theory, right? Like you clone a human being and you go, well, is that the same person or do they become another person now? What's the ethics, I guess? What's the ethics there? And will being an avatar or controlling an avatar entitle you to human rights, right? Like the iRobot movie, right? Like being a robot, does that mean that you have human rights or do you have a separate rights? And, what's the difference, right? So that does bring up a lot of questions that I'm definitely down to discuss, and like interested in knowing like what your thoughts are about those type of ethical implications when we do reach that time in the future where we're going, well, do machines deserve rights? Because we're getting close to that point in our rat race or whatever, where we're going to have to start asking that question: do machines have rights? That's where we're going to be.
I think they deserve 3/5 of of a vote. No, I think
Yeah, robot. That's why you don't get paid as much as we do.
I think
Yeah,
separate but equal, right? I won't sit at the same table as a robot, certainly. But I do think they deserve the same rights. No, I think with clones, so clones is kind of a tough comparison because a clone, we see clones from like the sci-fi perspective of here's me at 35 years old, and yes, I'm 35. I know I carry it well. 35 years old, and I all of a sudden have a 35-year-old clone who looks and acts and is essentially just me. Is that a new person, or is that the same person? I think it's a new person.
right.
But that's not how clones work. We're not at that point where we have that yet. Currently, clones are, they take your DNA, and they start you over again. So you end up with a baby version of you, kind of like Jango Fett does with Boba Fett. And Boba Fett is, and this is how I describe Boba Fett. Boba Fett is Jango Fett if Jango Fett raised Jango Fett. Basically, he's able to create a version of him that is trained by him at his peak. So I could,
which is awesome, which is fucking awesome.
Which is why Boba Fett is the shit. Because Jango Fett was already the shit, but then he made a version of him with everything that he had originally and more. So that is pretty cool. That would obviously be a whole new person because you're taking somebody from birth from conception to a human being, or to a full-grown human being. But if you were to take, would I consider that another person who is entitled to the same rights and everything as another human? Yeah, because there'd be nobody who'd question that anyways, except for the people who knew that it was a clone. Those are the only people that would question it. But when you have the situation where all of a sudden the population is doubled because people are just making clones of themselves, then you you get to a position where you're like, well, I don't know, because sort of like The Sixth Day with Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Where they had the clone, like if you pulled their eyelid down, you could see a dot, how many times they had been cloned or whatever. Those clones, I don't think are entitled to the same rights as somebody, because that's obviously rife. That whole situation is absolutely the makings of voter fraud, right? Or any kind of fraud for that matter.
Yeah,
because
we'll just clone a bunch of people and have them vote for you.
Just have a bunch of people who believe the same thing as you. We'll get all of our liberal friends, and we'll create a clone army of liberals who will also vote in favor of this and this, these ridiculous policies, and we will, we'll take over the country, kind of like what we're doing right now. How they were able to cheat the electoral system by manufacturing votes out of nothing. Welcome to the chat, by the way, Critter Me Timbers. And everybody who has joined since the beginning. I'm sorry, Let's Fish already. J Coop, and James Pregler, I think. I don't know if you were there at the very beginning. I can't remember. But everybody who's joined, thank you for joining us. We're happy to have you. Please, if you engage in the chat, I'll see your name and I'll welcome you accordingly. But I think that's kind of where we're at right now with the issue of just creating new people out of nothing. And that's what the sci-fi version of cloning, that's a problem. And I don't think those clones would be entitled to the same rights as other humans.
That's interesting.
To some degree. Now, do I think that those people are entitled to, like, not getting murdered in the streets or being tortured by police? Absolutely. I think that they're a human being, sort of. It's cruel. It's cruel and inhumane to kill a clone just because they're a clone. Would I give them
Like,
the
what was the
same?
illusionist? What was the one with Hugh Jackman where he kept killing his clone?
Yeah, Illusionist. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
With
illusionist.
Edward Norton. Or no, that was Prestige. It was Prestige. They came out at the same time.
Prestige.
It was one of those twin movies.
No, it was with Christian Bale. Muslim Bale was in
Yeah,
it.
Prestige. That's what it was called. Prestige.
Oh yeah, Prestige. Yeah.
Illusionist was the one where Edward Norton did the same exact thing, but in a different movie, and it came out at the same time.
Yeah,
Twin
that's
movies
right.
is what that's called, because every once in a while they have two movies that get rushed to the floor because two studios had the same idea at the same time, and then they have to rush them to the floor at the same time. But that's what happened with Prestige and Illusionist, and why we get them confused right now. But yeah, I think they should be limited on their rights. Mike says I have to take a shot every time someone joins the chat.
Yeah.
But I think they should be limited on like voting. I think it should be done by DNA. I think if you go in and you test your DNA and it says you've already voted, well, shit. That way you're not having the same people and their clones.
Like call your clone. You're like, did you fucking vote liberal?
Yeah. Who did you vote for? Well, I just went in and
You piece of shit.
fucking voted
Yeah.
for.
So
I just went straight Republican. Oh, okay, good.
That brings up a good question about, I guess, the generalized idea of like you said a term that kind of made me think. You said we're creating life out of nothing, and like it's kind of like a profound thought because that's what we're doing, right? Like we're capable. We're at the point where we are capable of cloning. We're at the point where we're capable of creating robotic busts of people that used to exist at one time. We can create holograms of Tupac and have them show up at a concert, and you go, "Oh my God, Michael Jackson's doing the moonwalk," and whatever, this hologram, right? So at what point can we say these are real people? And would you argue, and here's the question here, would you argue that robots and clones and cyborgs, do these things have souls? Do they have souls? Like, me, and I go, well, I don't know what a soul is, but I want your theological perspective on whether or not robots, clones, cyborgs, holograms, digital virtual reality presence, avatars, actual video game avatars, do these things have souls? These realities, the line of reality is skewing more and more as we get into the future because we're having to understand, like, and this coming from the guy who recently got into virtual reality porn, right? Like I'm sitting there and I'm looking in the eyes of this porn star, right? And like there's this moment where that, with what we call the suspension of disbelief, is happening, and you go, holy shit, I'm here, I'm banging this porn star, and it's all gone, right? That all of that reality is gone, and you've entered that reality. And so that, with that thought in mind, we have to understand that the reality that we live in now, the one where I'm talking to you right now, is just as real as virtual reality, or if not pretty close to the same thing, or at the very least, it's another reality, right? We're virtual reality. This is a separate world from what we have, right? Which is why I'm like looking forward to that aspect of it. But when you ask that question, that brings up all the other ethical and theological questions that make you go, well, do they have souls? If a robot dies, does he go to heaven, right? Or if a robot dies, does he go to heaven? Does he go to hell? If a clone dies, does he go to heaven? Does he go to hell? Did these things have soul? If I created a clone in a petri dish and it was never bore by a physical womb, right, a woman's womb, does that mean that it doesn't have a soul, or does it have? What's going on there, man? We're crossing into these territories.
I can argue for and against. Okay, and first I want to do a couple things. So, Mike, since Critter Me Timbers joined.
Oh, you're gonna do it?
So, and then also, I did want to say Critter Me Timbers. By the way, she's been a friend of the show for as long as I can remember, and she actually shares a lot of the same beliefs that we have as far as conservatism and kind of like radical conservatism, so to speak. But she does a lot of really funny memes kind of shitting on the government. So very good account to follow if you want to have somebody who shares our beliefs and will make you laugh at the same time. And she actually supported the show not too long ago, and I don't think I publicly thanked her for it. when she had made a post. It was a meme about fixing 2020, and it was like a garage full of DeLoreans. And I made the comment about we did a show on that, and you shouldn't do that because Marty McFly, our whole "You Had Me at Time Travel" episode, and she shared it, and she said, "Go check these guys out." So
Awesome.
Yeah, good friend great friend of the show, and I recommend you go find her. I don't know her if you want to throw it in the chat, but if you type in Critter Me Timbers on search, hopefully it'll say, mutual follower of so and so. You Had Me at Bigfoot. Anyways, as far as so like I said, I can argue for or against it. I think that there's so much about scripture that that they couldn't have known at the time. And we joke about this a lot, about John being a knuckle-dragging fisherman. And
common simian.
Yeah, and there was so much that he just didn't understand that he was seeing, and he did his best to relay the information. And then Paul, through the epistles, he did his best with what was there at the time, understanding that I don't know what's going to happen in the future. And I mean, even in that time, they had seen many technological advances. So I'm sure in the back of his mind, he was always like, well, who knows what these people in 2,000 years, if he had that foresight, are going to be dealing with. Let's try to speak in a way that's kind of generic so that it can be applied. It can be timeless, so to speak. And I think if we had the ability to just clone ourselves, I think at the womb, I think at conception, you are given a soul. I think that's when the soul enters the body, is at conception. So at the time right now, with what we have for clones, I think those clones have souls. I think they do. I think it's the same physical and mental, and I mean, granted, your mentality can change through your social environment or whatever, but physically, from the get-go, that's the same person that I was at the time that they pulled my DNA, right? And it creates another version of me that has a soul also. Now, as far as like sci-fi, cloning somebody, like if you were to clone me, 35-year-old me, and make another 35-year-old me, I think that it would have its own separate soul. I do. And this is something that I just now developed during this episode. Because, and hear me out. I used to wonder that myself. But now that I think about it, and the more I've been going through my seminary journey and my spiritual development, I think if a human being exists on this planet, it was sanctioned and allowed by God, and therefore would be allowed a soul, or afforded its own soul. So does that mean when we go to heaven, we would be two separate souls? I think so. I think that that's what would happen. Is it would almost be like you could have a carbon copy of something in your computer, right? And it just has like the parentheses 1 parentheses. Would it be Tom Miller's soul parenthesis 1 parenthesis? Yeah. I don't know. Or do I think would it be its own? But it's its own separate entity when you make a carbon copy like that on your computer. So I think that could be a thing, and labels are just not necessary once you get to that point. But as far as robots, I think the sentience, right? And this is where I kind of get confused with this whole 2045. Like, I follow you. I'm with you 100%. I get it. But my question goes to the sentience portion, right?
Right.
Is the brain where your sentience exists? Or is that a separate entity? Is your soul embedded in your brain? That can be data transferred and harvested and moved into a new host? Or when your data is removed and put into a cyborg, are you just creating an asshole version of a robot who acts like Tom Miller, but my sentience goes elsewhere? I'm no longer a part of it. Am I just paying $2 million to leave behind the legacy of Tom Miller, the total dick, that I will not experience? I don't know. And that's where you're kind of at a point where and I know you have this issue of taking on faith, right? and
Yeah.
you like to have this reasonable, like, I'd like to know certain things before I jump in. You're kind of in this way taking that in faith that
Right.
your sentience will move forward into that, and it won't just
Yeah.
create a carbon copy of you that you leave behind when you die.
That's a really good point, dude. That's a really damn. I was hoping that you would bring, man. It's so good that I can rely on you to ask the right questions with your theological studies and stuff, because that was kind of the question that I wanted you to ask was is it actually you? Like that's what it comes down to, right? Like this avatar stuff, like man, I want to be immortal. We all know that. We all know I want to be immortal. I want to be 1,000 years old, and I go and talk to somebody, and they go, "How many chicks have you banged?" And I go, "Man, like I don't know."
Infinity.
Yeah, infinity. I've banged infinity chicks, right? And so but the question is like when I transfer my consciousness to whatever it is, how do we know for sure that that's actually me? Because we know, like scientifically, we know, right, that your brain has these synapses and neurons and all these electrical whatever that can be replicated in a computer, and basically doesn't require that. You don't need a Dyson sphere to charge a human, right? You just need a certain amount of energy that can create the same calculations, that replicate the same neuron patterns, and all the stuff that happens when your brain, like you can replicate a brain with machinery, right? And so all the goal is to replicate all the exact same synapses and neuron firings that the brain does as the person that you're replicating or transferring to, right? Which again, I'm not familiar entirely with the exact science, right, of how they're doing this. Again, it's research right now. It's not like definitive, so we don't know for sure. But the question, I guess, is will that actually be me, right? Like they go, okay, we're gonna, like I'm there in the chair, right? And they're going, we're gonna transfer your consciousness to this thing, and I'm going, okay, I'm ready. And then they do it, and then I'm in heaven, and God goes, "Oh, you're here." And I go, "What, dude? This wasn't supposed to happen. I'm supposed to be in the body down there." And he's like, "Sorry, it doesn't work like that. Sorry, sorry, you don't get to transfer your con. That is just a machine down there that mimics you, but it doesn't have your soul, right?" So I guess that's the tough question here. So
So, I'll go ahead.
I was just gonna say you didn't answer my question, assuming that you end up deciding to live forever. Which one would you choose?
Honestly, I would. I think if I were gonna stick around, I would just. I hate to say it. I hate to be this guy, but I would just find a body that looked most like me, or that way I wouldn't have to convince my family and friends. Oh, hey, it's me, Tom. Remember? And then they're like screaming or whatever.
Yeah,
And they're like, "You're not my grandpa. You're not my dad," or yeah, whatever.
sudden a
Um,
young version
I,
of you.
yeah, I would just stick with whatever closest. I mean, I would hope that if it looked like me, I would have the power of a robot to be able to do robot stuff in an old man body if I needed to. But I'd probably just stick with whatever people were most familiar with. Kind of like when you see some kind of like fantasy or whatever, where they're like, I picked a form that you could most relate to or you would most appreciate or whatever. That would be what I would do, just because I would want them to, um, I would want them to still want to hang out with me. You
You're all
know,
so
because
you
what's the
show up to
point?
your house and it's Kenny Loggins, and they're all, "Whoa, Kenny Loggins," and you're all, "No, it's
I'd be
Tom.
like,
I just wanted to keep the
danger
gag going."
zone. I totally got him. Uh,
Yeah.
there are some real, and let me say this, as the cool kids say, there are some real bangers in the chat. All right, and I want to get to them because I know we're coming up on time, but it's more important that we address some of these questions. Um, VS, I see your question, and I'm going to come back to it. Uh, but there was, I did want to address this Critter Me Timbers. I didn't get to talk about my opinion against it, and I would agree that that's also a potential that the clone would not have a soul. I think that that's absolutely possible too. But I think, based on what I've studied over, throughout this seminary, my seminary studies, and the more I read the Bible from a hermeneutical perspective of some of these questions that we ask in on the show, the more I wonder if God allows it to happen. Because I think if God didn't want it to happen, it wouldn't. And I joked not too long ago about CERN. If God wanted them to access these other dimensions in order to accelerate the apocalypse, he'll let it. But if he didn't want it to, all of a sudden these scientists would come down with some very aggressive brain cancer from the radiation, right? That kills them off. I think that if it happens, it's part of God's plan, and I think that God would recognize, he created a clone. This is one of my children now. Though I'm not particularly thrilled about his decision, I am obligated as God the Father to look after this and accept him as one of my children. Assuming, my clone goes on the same path I did. Now, if my clone goes off on because then you get into a weird situation where I myself am on this path towards salvation, and all of a sudden my clone decides, you know what, I would rather go snort lines off of hookers in a bathroom, and then die in the Viper room or whatever, and end up in hell. What happens to my soul then? Is it like torn between two? Do I have to go with one, or does he get like entry into heaven just through association? Because then you kind of get into a weird position. Or does he just go away, and then all of a sudden God's plan is, if you're a human on Earth, you have some kind of influence as part of my plan. This version of me that does not have a soul gets a free pass. He gets to just do whatever he wants, and then and then die, and then that's it for him. So I don't know. There's so much that goes into that. So that would be my argument against it.
See, my hope is that like we get to heaven, and like everything, like there are so many things that had souls that we didn't know about. Like we get up there and there's like aliens and like robots, and you're all, holy crap, what do you know? It's just, they actually had souls too. Like
right.
You get up there, a bunch of clones of you, and you're like, hey, what's up, dude? You have a soul? Yeah, I have a soul.
Oh, nice. Too. Oh, my old Gameboy Advance had a soul. Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Sweet. Yeah, sweet, dude.
Like my thing would be
barbershop quartet or something.
my hope would be that my dogs will all meet. I mean, there are church fathers and people who have like theorized, like religious philosophers who have talked about it. Well, it might have been Mark Twain who said it, but if dogs aren't allowed into heaven, then that's not someplace I want to be. So the whole argument about, are your dogs going to be waiting for you in heaven, that sort of thing. I mean, I think heaven is, I don't know what heaven is going to be. I don't know what it's going to be like. The discussion on what heaven will be like is so like absent in biblical in scripture. Like what we know about heaven is largely based on what the church fathers have assumed it is, and based off of things. And it's a lot of like there's a lot of debate about who has it right, who has the right opinion, and based off of scripture, who's wrong and whatever. But it's so like, if you were to go based off of scripture what heaven is going to be like, it would be different than what people paint it to be.
Right.
So I think that based on what we know, based on scripture, I'm not even going to go into it because I don't even know 100% what scripture says about it. I know that there is a lot of discussion about just paradise alone, what is known, right? Because when Christ died on the cross, he looked over at the guy next to him and said, "You'll be with me in paradise tomorrow," right? Or tonight, this evening, I think. I forget what he says exactly. Should be something that I would remember, right? Christ's last words. But he told this guy that he would be in paradise with him very soon. And some church fathers have interpreted that to mean to talk about kind of like the limbus, where people went when they died. Jews, when they died, they went to this place called limbus, paradise, which was an afterlife where it was nice. It was a pleasant place to be, but it wasn't heaven, right? And it wasn't until Christ died, he went to Limbus and he preached to these Jews who had gained entry into Limbus, as opposed to the people who did not ascribe to Jewish faith and their practices and went on to Gehenna, which was another level of the Thomas Aquinas model of hell, right? And like the Dante Alighieri from the Divine Comedy. The people who did not abide by Jewish traditions and rituals, they went to these layers of hell all the way down to Gehenna, which was like the worst type of hell, the very bottom of the pit. But like the good God-fearing Jews who did their sacrifices yearly and atoned for their sins and all that stuff, they went to Limbus. Christ went down to Limbus, talked to them, won them over and said, hey, I'm the Messiah, come with me, we'll go on to heaven, we'll go on to paradise. And so there's a lot of argument in the church whether or not heaven exists right now or if it's something that will exist on Judgment Day. And then you can go even further into like some Wesleyan tradition stuff where John Wesley talks about people who are not religious or whatever. They go into this anticenter of hell waiting for Judgment Day, which is not a pleasant place, but it's not hell. And then the people who are righteous and who are looking at a future in heaven, they go to the anticenter of paradise in heaven, which is a nice place, but it's not heaven. So you kind of get into this weird theological discussion based on like the church fathers and shit. Nobody really knows what heaven is like. Whether or not there will be dogs there, I'm inclined to believe that like whatever you consider to be paradise, whatever is meaningful to you, I think it'll be there. I think it'll be waiting on you.
So your argument is that heaven will be better than immortality? Like heaven will be better than earth? You're saying that essentially, well, that's pretty good. If you're telling me that heaven is going to be exactly what I hope it is, then I'm cool with that. I'm cool with dying, but I honestly would like to live forever. I honestly want to be able to keep gaining knowledge, and like I want to see where the earth goes. You know, I think so. So that brings it back to the method of Avatar and what I would do. I'll tell you what I do.
Let me hear. Preach, brother.
I'll tell you what I do. I would do the 24. Okay, so in 2045, I will be 64. I'll be 64 years old in 2045. So I'll be close to my dad's age. And like we Villaloboses, we live a good amount, man. My grandpa, he lived to like 95, dude. So I'm pretty sure I'll see 2045. You know, based on, you know, average lifespans, assuming I don't get cancer or have a heart attack from eating too much bacon, which I do eat a lot of bacon, so that's not out of the. I'm not.
I thought you were intermittent fasting, doggone it.
So assuming that I live to 2045, because I'm holding out for the hologram. Like I want to be inserted into the Matrix, essentially. Like I want to be able to go into a virtual world where I can do whatever I want. Like I can have a harem of a bunch of porn stars, right? I can go play in like some medieval world and be like a knight or whatever if I want to. You know, I can alter it up. Like Westworld. Like remember Westworld? I don't know if you watch Westworld. They go and they're like, I want to go to this Wild West time and be there. Because like I'm one of those guys that's like, man, you always go, I was born in the wrong era, right? I should have been born in Japan, the Sengoku era. I should have been a samurai, right? I always think like that, right? But I'll never get to live in those times, right? I'll never get to experience what it was like, you know, to like follow Jesus around on his tour, right? On his tour of Israel. I'll never get to experience that. I'll never get to be in the Sengoku era and stand atop Osaka Castle with Oda Nobunaga and go, yeah, we need to take, you know, this and this is going to happen. So I would like to continue seeing what happens in the future. So I would choose the hologram and go get inserted into that. I'm hoping that that would be my consciousness. If not, then I hope that when I get to heaven, God's like, here's all the bitches that you want, and you can hang out with robots if you want, and you know, do whatever you want. if it's not like that, I'm gonna be pretty disappointed. I'll be like, look, this is not.
You're gonna chew me out about it, Tom. I thought
like,
you said
this was gonna be cool. You said heaven was gonna be cool, dude. It's not cool at all. It sucks.
So my dad had theories on it. My dad was of the Wesleyan tradition, right? He was Methodist.
Right.
But that was his, I mean, that was his whole life. He spent studying theology and that. And his opinion on it was that, and I'm inclined to agree to some degree, right? Because he talked about being, the universe being still in play at the time of eternity, and that we would be spread out amongst the cosmos. Heaven itself would have its own confines, like there would be walls around, because it's described that there are walls around heaven. But he had described going to other planets, being able to travel the cosmos, right? And that stuff will continue. And if you look into Revelation, it actually, and my pastor and I got into a debate about this, frankly, where he talked, because if you read Revelation from a perspective other than he did, apparently, because he read it a certain way, I read it a different way. There are talks in Revelation where it talks about heaven coming to earth and heaven being located on earth, and there being a confines of heaven, right? And this is all after the millennium and after Christ setting up his kingdom on earth and all that. And I mean, you're talking about thousands of years. He does all this stuff, and there's like this whole post-millennial Christians and stuff. This is when I talk about like heaven being very cliquey. There's going to be the Jews. Then there's going to be the Jews who, up until Christ came, the Jews who were Orthodox Jews, right? And they did right by. Are you telling
me there's going to be Jews in heaven?
Yeah.
So I have that in heaven too.
Yeah, you'll never get over Jews having like a monopoly over the entertainment industry.
And then in heaven, you get there and they have.
They have TV. All the TV stations are run by Goldberg and Rosenstein or whatever, and you're like, oh, come on. But no, there will be Jews, and these are like pre-Jesus Jews, so don't worry about any of the modern day Jews that are kind of like troublemakers. I'm talking about pre-Jesus Jews, because once Jesus came and identified himself as the Messiah, a lot of Jews, well, some Jews at least, went and began following Jesus. Some did not, and they were very resistant to it. Even the Jews that converted were somewhat resistant to Gentiles becoming a part of their religion, because they were like, well, we did all this stuff and all these rituals and stuff, and you're telling me that the Gentiles don't also have to do that? And Paul's like, well, you don't have to do it either. Like, he came and he said that you don't have to do all the ritualistic stuff anymore, the ceremonial stuff anymore. And the Jews were like, no, I think they should all be circumcised too. And, they were like, well, that's not a requirement, but whatever. You can if you want. I don't care. But circumcision is not a requirement of Christians, of followers of Christ. Yeah. Anyway,
you don't have to chop up your penis, dude. Come on.
Right. And so this is like a whole argument that happened back 2,000 some years ago, but whatever. So there will be Jews, pre-Jesus Jews, and then the Jews who converted, right, and became Christian or followers of Christ, who were like, oh, okay, well, this dude was the Messiah, but some of them didn't, and they will all burn in the lake of fire. But the ones who did follow Christ, they were the ones who, they'll be in heaven, right, all the way, and then you'll have modern-day Christians from, 2030, or I'm sorry, the year 30 AD until the end of times, and then you'll have the pre-tribulation saints who are like, they're mentioned in Revelation, you can read about them, and they have a rough go of it. And then you'll have the millennial Christians who are there when Jesus's reign is on earth, and then you'll have like the post-millennial Christians. So there's like many different groups of people who will be allowed into heaven. So like I said, it'll be very cliquey.
Right, like prison.
Yeah, pretty much. I think that will all. I think we'll transcend that requirement of like being clicky. But I'm just saying, like, there will be. Oh, hey, when did you get here? Oh, well, as a matter of fact, I'm a Jew from the Old Testament. You know, like that. But oh, well,
And you're like,
I was a
okay.
pre-tribulation saint. Oh, fantastic! Instead of being like, oh, you know, I don't want to hang out with you. I think it'll be like, oh, wow, awesome! I'm glad you're here. But anyways, he and I, my pastor and I argued about this because I'm like, there is stuff in Revelation that specifically says that heaven will relocate to earth. I understand that earth as it is now is not going to be. Like, not to count on earth being here, the earth that we are experiencing now to be. But after the apocalypse, after Armageddon and all that, you know, you're going to have the millennial period where Christ is reigning on earth. Heaven relocates to earth, according to Revelation. And it even gives you the demographics. Arguably, I think, my opinion, and I'm sure it's an opinion shared by many in the scholar community, not that I'm a scholar, but that I'm sure that some believe this, is that it will locate itself in Israel. I think it will fall into that Israel nation state kind of site, right? Now, heaven itself being at the or within the walls of heaven, I think is not particularly important. But that is God's location, and we will, because there are however many of us at that point. If you look at it, and you try to just do the numbers, there is not enough room for everybody within the confines of these walls that they describe in Revelation. So that leads me to believe that we will have to be able to go somewhere else and do other things that are not within the walls and the confines of heaven's walls, right?
Like the home office. Is that what you're saying? Like
Yeah,
the
that's
home
the
office.
headquarters. That'll be headquarters.
Yeah,
Um,
HQ. Yeah,
and that's
HHC heaven.
right. And that's where the light comes from, because God's light is what's going to sustain us, the manna from heaven, all that sort of stuff. The food and the water that we drink comes from there. But we won't be required to reside there. We will be able to go elsewhere in the cosmos. And imagine a universe so
That sounds
expansive that we haven't even seen it all. And far, you know, there's no way we would ever be able to reach it all, for that matter, in multiple lifetimes to the nearest star system, right? So a universe that big, there has to be something to it from a religious standpoint.
yeah.
If you were looking at it from
That's the Contact starring Matthew McConaughey argument, where they say, do you believe there's heaven out there? Do you believe that we're the only creatures in the universe? And Matthew McConaughey says, well, if it sure is a waste of a lot of space if it's just us out here. And I think that's interesting. If heaven is like what you described it as, and I'm able to travel the cosmos and like through different dimensions, then I'm totally cool with heaven. That sounds cool. As long as I can have like a porn star harem and like do whatever I want. You know what I mean? Like if I can travel and like do whatever I want, like whatever my imagination, then heaven sounds pretty cool, I think, if that's what it's like.
I think I'm not going to sit here. I'm not going to be SUV. I don't think porn star is going to be something that is appreciated in heaven. But I will say that at that point, you will find whoever is your soulmate, or whatever you want to call it.
Well, you're telling me that I'm stuck with one person?
I think it won't matter at that point.
Ah.
You know what I mean? Like, okay, hear me out.
I want to have a different woman for each day. I want to like wake up. You're my girlfriend for today.
Well, that would be Islam. So, but like I said, you won't be making any kind of scientific leaps in discovery and research if you're a Muslim. But what I will say is this: I know that that's important to you now. I speak from a happily married for 14 years perspective.
Right.
I am at a point where I could sit here and I could say, oh boy, wouldn't it be great if I had a porn star girlfriend each different day, and I could just, sleep with a different girl every day. But I'm not into that. Like, that's
Yeah,
not something that
that's
I'm.
not your desire, right?
It's
It's
not
not your
something that
desire.
I want. And I think if you would have asked me that question 16 years ago, wouldn't you like a different porn star every day for the rest of your life? I would have been like, yeah, that would be awesome. That'd be tight. I'd be into that. I think, yeah, like that would have made sense. But where I'm at now, my perspective has changed to a point where that's not even something that I want. Like, if somebody offered me that in lieu of marriage, and I know people they talk shit about it all the time. Like, oh, you got to sleep with the same girl for the rest of your life or whatever. And they make it sound like it's a terrible thing. But at a certain point, your perspective changes where you're just like, yeah, that's what I want. And I think that your perspective would, in a different circumstance, change to where you're
And
like,
I can't argue that. I commend your argument because I can't argue that because I'll be honest with you. If I met a woman that was able to, like, what do you call it, tame the stallion, that was like, yeah, and I'm sure, and although there is no prospects, honestly, my only hope right now in terms of prospects of women is that some chick will watch the show and go, hey, that V guy, he's kind of cute and he's a Republican, and we all try to like hook up with him. My hope is that that happens, and that's how I meet like the future Mrs. V.
are we now a dating show? Like, is that what we're doing now? We're
Hey, I don't
trying
have
to get
any
V laid?
prospects at all. I looked at the few. I get none of my ex-girlfriends will accept. I've been so terrible to all my ex-girlfriends in the past that none of them will accept my calls or reply to my emails at all. So I'm out on a limb here. I'm going, well, if there's a woman out for me, if there's a woman out there for me, chances are it's really slim the type of woman that could put up with me. But I'm willing to put aside that harem, that dream of a harem, if there's a woman out there that meets my ridiculous standards, I guess you could say. But I'm open to it, and that's why I can't argue your logic there, because I could see how that would be okay if I met my match, right? If I met the match, right? Then maybe. But as of right now, where I'm at right now, I'm going, I don't think if I could just have a woman every day, and I go, you're hot, but you're not a blonde, or you're hot, you're not a brunette, or you don't have big boobs, or switch it up a little bit, dress up like a maid today,
Well, you can do that with a wife, right? Like, you can. So here's the thing with with marriage. Why marriage doesn't work for a lot of people, and we've gone way over, but who cares? We started late
right.
too, so I'll use that as an excuse. But why many marriages tend to fail is because relationships don't explore new territories, right? You end up with that stale, oh, well, like that joke goes, what's the one dessert that kills a sex drive in a woman? Wedding cake, right? Once they eat wedding cake, the blowjobs end, the weird sex ends, everything ends.
I don't like that, man.
That's not true. You just have to, and I feel bad because my brother-in-law might still be listening. But at a certain point,
yeah.
you have to address the issue with your spouse. And this is not just a man with a woman thing. This is a woman with a man thing sometimes too, where they're like, I would like to change it up. I don't like that you expect me to blow you, but you will never go down on me, right? Like, that's an issue. And I've heard that before.
That's a no-go.
I've heard people say that. And that's one thing that you have to get into. If you want blowjobs, you gotta go down on your wife or girlfriend. And there are some women who who are like, I'll give blowjobs anyways. But like, after 14, 15 years that we've been together, there has to be some kind of like reciprocity where it's like, right. I can't sit here and be like, I'm the husband, you give me a blowjob, blah, 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 blah. And that's what happens to a lot of couples. Like, you have to understand that there is a reciprocity.
Are you trying to tell me that women have rights? Is that what you're trying to say?
I am not. Don't get it don't get it twisted, V. I don't think women have no. I think okay. Here's my argument to you there. I don't think women have a place in certain. I forget who I talked to about this earlier, but I said, it was Jerry. As a matter of fact, I talked to Jerry for like 2.5 hours today. Like I really like he and I sat down because he had some things that he needed to talk about and he needed a sympathetic ear. And he knew that I was the guy that he wanted to go to. For whatever reason, Jerry thought that I was the guy that he wanted to like confide in. But he had some things that he wanted to talk about. One of the things that I talked about was women. I don't think women are physiologically the right fit for most things that they want. Now, not for most things, but for most things that they want. They want, it's like when you want to sit down and eat ice cream for when you're a kid, right? You want to eat ice cream for dinner every day because it's delicious and you like ice cream, and it makes you go fucking bananas and you run around the house being crazy. But you don't know that it's not good for you, and you need somebody to tell you that is not good for you. When a woman says, I want to be president, I want to be the chief of police, I want to be the head of a hospital, I want to be in these positions that require logic versus emotion, you need to be the guy who tells them, you are not going to do that. The same way you would a child say, you are not going to eat ice cream at night because, and here's why, because you will be fucking hyper, you will be crazy, you won't sleep, you'll wake up cranky tomorrow, you'll get sick to your stomach, da 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 da. The same reason you should say to a woman, this is why you should not be president. Because you think emotionally, you don't have the logical capacity to deal with these situations. You will sacrifice millions to save one if it means flipping a switch when you have to look somebody in the eyes as they die. You're not mentally or emotionally prepared to make tough decisions, and that is why we need you to be mothers. We need you to be at home, nurturing our children and raising the next generation, because the fathers and the men need to go out and they need to make the decisions that will haunt them for the rest of their lives for the betterment of humanity. Women don't have
violence
that.
On their behalf, right? Do violence on their behalf.
And that's my opinion on the matter. Now, when it is you and your wife, that is an entirely different thing, because I abide by the whole women respect your husbands and do as they say, as it is in the Bible. Men respect your wives as Christ respects the church and loves the church. So, for me to respect my wife in a way that makes me contradict a lot of my values as a misogynist and as a logical thinker, right? If I have to take away from that to respect my wife, there is one woman in this world that I respect, and it is my wife. There are two women in my life that I honor. I'm sorry, three. My wife, my mother, and my grandmother, right? That's it. But those are matriarchal figures, and my wife, obviously, who I am duty bound to respect and honor. So that is where my opinion changes. If my wife, now, here's where the conflict happens, right? If my wife said that she wanted to go into a position that I did not think she belonged in, I would tell her. But I would not tell her, you are not going to do this. I would tell her, this is my opinion. I hope that you would respect that. And I would give her the background behind it and why I think not. That way it's not like, you're not going to do this because I said so. Because what does that do? It just emboldens them to do it. But also, the same reason my kids, when we joke, I always say, you got to talk to your mother because she's in charge. My wife will go and tell my kids, well, you got to go talk to daddy because daddy's in charge. We both honor each other in that way where we don't make decisions based on our own opinion without the input of another. When I went and bought, I think I told you about this gun that I wanted to buy, $800 gun, not terribly expensive for a gun, for that shotgun that I wanted. And I could have bought it right then and there. I didn't, because I wanted to talk to her first. If I was going to buy it, I was going to talk to her first, because her opinion matters to me, and especially in financial decisions too. So she told me when I got home, she said, you should have bought it. And I said, I wanted to talk to you first. And she said, you could have called me. And I said, but I would have been putting you on the spot in front of my friend and in front of our neighbor, because it was my neighbor that was with me. I said, I would have been putting you on the spot, and I wouldn't do that to you.
Wow,
this is a conversation.
that's incredibly decent. I'm moved by that act of decency. That was a decent thing to do. I respect that.
See, you think everyone thinks I'm a piece of shit, but in reality, and I am, to your defense. However, when it comes to my wife, I am a totally different person as far as my values, and because I chose her, she chose me. We are a team. We are one. We have become one in our marriage, and though we've had our ups and downs,
starring Jet Li.
Yeah, exactly. But we became one, and I don't make a decision without her. Likewise, I would be upset if she made a decision without me. And the same thing happens. It's funny because not too long ago, she was going to go out with friends, and then it turns out the friend wanted to go and I don't remember what it was. Go to a seedy bar or something that was has a history of having a bunch of dudes, and she was just like, you know what, if it's just me and you, I'm not she's talking to her friend. She's like, if it's just me and you, I wouldn't feel comfortable with that. If it was a group of us, that would be another thing. But if it's just me and you, and we're going to a bar with karaoke and people drink, a bunch of dudes drinking, I'm not particularly comfortable with that, because for the same reason she wouldn't be comfortable with me going to a strip club or something, or me going to a bar that is notorious for female, just a higher female population. That's the whole thing.
What bar is that? Do tell.
Yeah, well, I don't
what
know.
What bar were the?
I'm sure it'd be a gay bar, or a Chippendales or something. But
right.
Yeah, I don't know, man. But that's my opinion on the matter. We are a society that is built on certain gender norms, whether you like it or not. There are certain gender norms, and those gender norms are not just based on some, people drew out of a hat. Oh, guys are going to work in sanitation, women are going to work in sewing circles and making shoes and collecting shoes and shit. It's based off of the way we are physiologically built, and the things that we excel at as our particular gender. And no amount of gender studies degrees or whatever ridiculous, meaningless classes that they're going to present to our children in the library of elementary schools is going to change that. Men are just built to do certain things. Women are built to do certain things. And that is why we complement one another so well as male and female couples, rather than if you have two dudes together or two women together. It just doesn't, raising a kid in that way. Imagine, and it goes into the whole why this is not even the reason I'm against gays adopting children or whatever, or raising children for that matter. I think, imagine two guys raising a little girl, or even two guys raising a son together. It's just, he's not going to have that level of nurturing that is required from a mother.
It's lopsided. That's what it is. It's lopsided. That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
I like how VS called me out on the "we live in a society." Well, we're totally off topic here.
Yeah.
I knew somebody was going to say it when I said, "Wait, we are in a society." But VS did ask earlier, is it gay to bang your own clone? And my answer to that is, based on my newfound perspective that clones have their own individual souls, I think it would be pretty gay. Prior to this, what I used to think was if they didn't have a soul, who's gonna know? So whatever happens with you and your clone is on you and your clone.
I imagine you walking into a room and there's your clone banging another clone of you, and you're just what's going on here?
And that reminds me too, Mike said something about what if like your clone, like the soul didn't transfer to the clone, so your clone was just like a little off. And I think what he meant by that is like a little retarded, like on Duplicity when he clones the clone and then it ends up being retarded.
Yeah.
I think yeah, I mean that's definitely a possibility too. I think with any amount of human error with cloning, Jay Coop says you need to do the ha gay.
Yeah.
But I think with any amount of human error, and we're seeing it now with this whole vaccine thing, is like any amount of human error that goes into science, it's always at risk of having some kind of human error. And yeah, you would end up with some clones that were all jacked up and had extra fingers and like a giant anus with a huge areola that spreads across the butt cheeks, right?
Yeah.
So I had poured myself another shot just in case somebody else came in, but nobody came in. You want me to do this?
Do it.
Oh, to bang in your own clone with a gigantic anus and a butthole or a butthole areola that spans the cheeks.
That is just an appalling image. So, what did you think? What did you think of the topic? Did you enjoy my topic for the show today?
I did. I'm glad. I'm glad we have talked. You and I have talked about this, obviously, and we've even talked about it on the show. I think it's fine for people who want it. I think it exists. I think I'll give it 5 Bigfoots. I think it's a thing that will happen, and I think it will play out the same way that Black Mirror played out. I think it's going to be weird and scary, and there's going to be a lot of things that maybe we don't consider that go into it. But I think if you want to do it, I'm not going to tell you don't do it. I'm going to tell you my opinion, because again, that's all it boils down to, is a theological opinion.
You're the guy that goes with me to the Avatar dealership, and you're like, man, I don't know about this. Like, you got to blah blah blah, and I'm going, but I could live forever and harem, dude. And you're like, yeah, come on, guy, come on. It's something that Jay Coop, or maybe it was Mike in Manitoba, said made me think of an interesting concept. And we always joke about the one with Jet Li. Remember, I have Jula.
Yeah,
I am nobody's bitch. Yeah. Well, what if like there was like you could do that where you kill the other one from you in a dimension and it makes you stronger, but instead it was like you had to bang the one that was you in another dimension.
Oh, yeah,
so
that's
you bang yourself in another dimension, you could become like all powerful.
So would you have to jizz in yourself, your clone version of yourself, to retain the power? Or would you have to? Because honestly, you would gain more vitality if you let your clone jizz inside you, right?
Yeah. You don't want them jizzing inside of you. You have to jizz inside them, or maybe they would have to jizz inside you.
That's what I'm saying. You'd have to gain their vitality by letting them jizz inside you. Now, would you let them do it in your ass or in your mouth? Man. Are you willing to gain that vitality through that?
Yeah, that's a pass for me.
I'll just stay at my current physique, I guess.
Yeah,
because I'm not gonna let this.
Yeah, anything that involves gay sex, I'm not gonna do. I'm not gonna do that.
Oh man, yeah, I'll give it 5. But like I said, it's not something that I would do. Just simply the same reason with the weed. Like, I agree that you should be allowed to do it. I believe that you should be allowed to smoke weed. Would I do it? No, but I'm not gonna stop somebody else from doing it. But at the same time, I will warn you that there are some dangers involved with smoking weed for addictive personalities. If somebody had an addictive personality or somebody has one, I will.
You're telling me I shouldn't snort gasoline that I poured on a rag? Is what you're saying?
Right. You shouldn't
Flew
be
out of a paper
Yeah,
bag.
you
Is that what you're
shouldn't
saying?
be chugging mouthwash or anything like that. Remember that song by the dude Trevor Moore, right? He sings that song about mouthwash. It's so funny. I'll send you the link in a little bit, but yeah, I think there are some dangers to it. I think there are potentially, because I can't speak definitively.
Right. Well,
I
that's why science is so cool, because there's constant ethical questions
Right.
coming up. The more science we have, the more ethics we have to address, and I enjoy that part of it, especially when we go, well, does a robot deserve rights? We're getting to that point. Like, we are getting so close to the point that, like, we have to go, are robots going to have rights? That's where we're at, right? The Japanese, they're going to be the first ones. They're going to
Yeah.
be the ones that go, yeah, man, this robot waifu needs to have rights.
She
You
gets a
can't,
vote.
yeah, you can't rape a robot waifu. Don't let me forget, I need to shill too. There's some shilling I have to do for the show
Yeah.
today too.
I'll wrap up my thing then. Or my
Yeah,
on the
we're on
topic.
3 hours today. We man.
On the topic. But no, I think. Do I think a robot waifu sex doll that doesn't have the transferred uh, mental? Because then you get into that weird Black Mirror
Yeah,
thing, right? Because you're like, if
Westworld.
especially after you watch Black Mirror and you can appreciate the what I'm telling you about this whole transference where the avatar doesn't realize that it's an avatar. Once you get to that point, like, you're terrorizing something, whether or
Yeah,
not it's a human being. But it's the same as, like, if you beat the shit out of a dog. Like, you sit there. I'm not equating a human being to a dog, but that when you beat the shit out of a dog or you kick a dog in the face, it's harming something. It's harming a living being. Now, is an avatar a living being? Can it experience the sort of emotional trauma? I don't know. And ethically, I'm on this fence where I'm like, I don't know that I could rape a avatar.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Personally, I don't think I could I stand up for the rights of an avatar without
If you
feeling a
if
little
Okay,
silly?
I watched it, and that's a good question. That brings up another question. I watched it. The whole reason why I wanted to do this topic is because I watched this movie the other day called Automata with what's his name? What's the Spanish dude that I like? Come on, Antonio
Javier
Banderas.
Javier Bartet.
No, that no, the Antonio Banderas Automata. I urge you to watch this movie. It's on Amazon Prime for free. You can watch it. And it really addresses a lot of those some of the questions that we asked tonight about, like, do robots have but there was this scene where the whole time he's against it, right? He's like, robots don't have rights, right? The whole movie, he's totally against it. But then there's this scene where he, like, is trying to protect this robot from getting shot, and he goes, "You're gonna die. You're gonna get killed." And the robot goes, "To get killed, you have to be alive." And it kind of like it's one of those questions, man, that, like, we ask, right? Like, the idea of death has changed. It went from, oh, you're dead, to, oh, well, he's brain dead, or he has heart death, or he has whatever sort of failure. There's all these different types of death. So when the idea of death becomes skewed, then the idea of life becomes skewed. And so it's one of those things where you say, well, to define death, right? This is the philosophical, what have you, point, where you go, to understand death, we have to understand what life is, right? And so, point where robots are in our everyday lives, right? You've got a robot. Everybody's gonna have a robot. That's butlers, right?
Right, right.
By default. So you have that robot butler, and he's with you all day. At what point do you start having empathy towards that robot and going, man, he's doing a really great job taking care of my child. This is a good robot. And you
So
almost want to say person, but you go robot. And it has so many qualities that mimic humans. Whereas, like, and I would argue that animals mimic, a lot of animals like dogs, they mimic human emotion, where we can say robots can start mimicking human emotion. And you go, well, do I have empathy towards this robot? At what point do I believe that it's alive? And that's when I go, well, this thing has human rights because I can empathize with it.
So let me ask you. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are listening, and not just live, but who are listening in the podcast. And I regret that we can't like hear some of the questions that the podcast can listen to. But I guess that's the whole thing with podcasts. I think about it like this, because I can real quick write something off as, oh, that's a robot. But I want people who do that, who can disconnect from robots, who can disconnect from that and say, oh, that's just Siri. Oh, that's just Alexa. That's not a real thing. Oh, that's Jeeves, right? Remember when Ask Jeeves was a thing? How many times did you, subconsciously or consciously, just as you were doing something, you say, hey, Siri, or like we'll start with Siri. Hey, Siri, tell me such and such. You said, hey, Siri. You actually reached out to it as if it was a sentient thing.
Right.
Alexa, do this. And granted, you need to do that in order for it to activate. But at a certain point, you get to a point where you're like, hey, that's another thing in my... Not me, personally. I don't have any of those things because I don't want the CIA listening in on me. Because I say, I'm like that guy, when people are like, well, if you have nothing to hide, then you would have no problem having these things in your house. Well, I have plenty to hide. So I don't have these things in my house.
Right. What's Skynet? Skynet?
Yeah, exactly. So like you get to a point where it becomes like this other thing that you accept as, if nothing else, than like a goldfish, right? I used to talk to my fish, right? We used to have this beta fish that lived fucking forever, like way longer than most people's beta fishes did, because it became my pet after the boys got tired of it. He became my pet, Boo Boo Fish. And I used to talk to him all the time. And like he became this sentient thing that I would talk to. And I cared, like when, hey, all right, hey, Boo Boo Fish, you hungry? That sort of shit. But like you do the same thing with, hey, Siri, hey, Alexa. And even to the point where you're like, hey, can you do me a favor and look up such and such? And whether you think it or not, you're doing it. Like, I want you to catch yourself next time you do it, if in fact you do it. I don't think any of our viewers would do this, like actually have these things. But if they do, think about it next time you're like, hey, do me a favor. Or, hey, Siri, can you look up such and such? You're talking to it like it's a human being. Yeah. When it's a robot and it would respond just the same to Siri, movie tickets, Cineplex, 7:00. You could talk to it like that, and it would respond the same way as, "Hey Siri, can you do me a favor and look up the movie tickets for 7:00 at the Cineplex?" Yeah, and it's gonna have the same result, but you treat it as if it's a human. So you've already bought into this, and actually, Critter Me Timbers brought this up. Once we are dehumanized, all bets are off. I'm sorry, she said, but humanizing AI helps dehumanize us, and that once we dehumanized, all bets are off. So we're already at that stage where we've already humanized these things that we know are not real. They're, you can sit there and joke with Siri, and they've created her. And say, I'm referring to her as a her because I'm humanizing her.
It's a her. And Alexa has a gender.
So you've already done it. You've already bought into it. So if somebody were to tell me, my argument as UV would be, you've already taken that step, Tom, is what I would have told me.
Yeah.
And, you've already taken that. So you're already there. Yeah. You've already asked Jeeves politely.
You're going to get into heaven, and there's going to be a bunch of Alexas up there. They're just going to be like, hello, Tom. Yeah, your tickets are ready. Fandango.
I've given souls to all these Alexas accidentally. But that's where, and I know Elon Musk is huge into it, talking about how AI is a problem. And we're like, the closer we get to AI is kind of like the downfall of human or civilization.
Yeah. Skynet, fucking Skynet.
I think we're there, man. And I think we walk a dangerous tightrope on the route that you're on. But at the same time, I don't think it matters because I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing. And I am going to continue to coax you along the way, and like, hey V, come on, like, come to Bible study with me. You know, like, I'm gonna continue to do that, and I'm gonna continue to try to hand you a tinfoil hat, and like, I'm gonna continue to do these things, and I think at the end of the day, I think that we're gonna be okay.
Well, that's a profound thought.
But V, what do you got to show?
What do I got to show? Okay, so don't forget to follow us on all of the social media sites that we have on here, and the Twitters and the Facebooks and the Instagrams and all that stuff. Don't forget, and we always forget to mention this, our show, we do a live recording at 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern time every Wednesday. That's not in stone. Sometimes things come up and, one of us has an issue and then the other one goes, oh, well, it just so happens, and we have to cancel. So, but generally our show is on Wednesdays from 6 p.m. or 9 p.m. Eastern time. You can catch us then. So don't forget to do that on YouTube as when we do our, as some of you are here watching. Those of you listening on, because we actually have our podcast is on podcasts, right? It's not just on YouTube as you great people are watching now. It's also on podcast. So if you listen to the podcast and you've never caught us on our YouTube channel, come by on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. East or Pacific, 9 p.m. Catch the live show, and then we can answer your questions in the chat. You can be on the show. Don't forget to check out the merch, right? We've got You Had Me at Bigfoot shower curtains that somebody someday is going to buy. I know you want a shower curtain. And lastly, don't forget to catch us next week. We have a really cool big guest coming next week that I'm super proud of nabbing for the show next week. So look forward to that. You guys, thanks for showing up. I'm old chap, old boy.
You got me in the middle of my ripping a fat vape.
Yeah, the term that the vapor, as somebody who recently is dabbling in vaping, I've learned that the term is pull. You take take a pull from your. I've got to familiarize myself with the jargon, as they say.
I've been vaping for years now. I've since 2015. And I still don't know. I call it my vape apparatus, and then there are other people who call it your what do they call it? Rig, right? They call it the rig.
Yeah, your rig. Yeah.
And then because you got the tank, right? And then and I'll show the people at home, right? Because people want to know how gay I am. So I've got this whole my rig, right? So I've got the battery storage and the actual piece itself where it's got the screen and all that cool shit, and then the tank, and then you've got the atomizer within the tank and all that bullshit. But yeah, you've got people they have names for all this stuff, and after 5 years of vaping, I still don't know them all. More than that, because I started on the vape pen, kind of like what you're on right now, V. You're on a path to destruction.
I'm on the gateway vape.
Yeah, you're on the path to one of these things. I used to drip, and then now I tank. I did the pen, and then the tank, and then the drip, and the tank again, because I was like, you know what? I'm not going to carry around the container with me for every 5 pulls. I'm going to take have to drip again on it. And plus, when you're driving and you're having to pour it in every 5 pulls and all that shit. But no, yeah. Boy, you really covered all the bases, V. This was a good episode. I had a lot of fun. It was nice to be able to sit back and kind of just be the peanut gallery for once.
Yeah, you were the guy.
But yeah, that dude, Grugrock, right? He who donated, and we talked about at the beginning of the show, he actually said, I'm never going to buy one of those shower curtains. He specifically said that. And I said, dude, don't even worry about it. I don't anticipate anyone will buy one of those shower curtains. But we do have some stuff on there. I do want to share some stuff, some more stuff, and maybe even jokingly throw the Christmas one on there. Like, I want to throw more on there. I don't want to sit and panhandle because I hate that's. First of all, I hate that people have to like throw advertising on the show. Let me do this holier than thou thing for me and V because he's too goodly to be that guy. But we don't want advertisers on our show to like cut in at the forefront or at the end or in the middle of the show saying, you know, advertising some bullshit that we don't care about. We would, and that's the thing that comes with the podcast is like
Jack Links. If Jack Links hits me up,
of course. If they, and it's funny because James works at Jack Links now, and I said, hey, when you're in with them and you can make a friend at the headquarters office, like, you know, then throw our name out. But don't be bringing us up until you've got a secure position at the establishment. But we don't want to do that. I hate that people have to do that. I hate going to YouTube videos and finding that I have to watch a 15-second ad to watch some 2-minute video or whatever. I understand that happens for our videos sometimes, but it's because we do the Kenny Loggins bit. Yeah, right. Every time we do the Kenny Loggins bit, Kenny Loggins gets some money. So I'm okay with that. I would rather we didn't, but whatever. It's become a part of our shtick. But we don't want to have to force you guys to pay for advertisement and all that crap. So Anchor, when they try to get us to do advertisement and shit, we don't want to do that. We can't do any kind of real advertisement like product placement advertisements throughout the show where we talk about products or whatever during the show unless we have more than 1,000 listeners in a month, that sort of shit, which we're fine with. We are more than happy to do this show pro bono, whatever. Right. We're happy to do it for free because like I told Grug Rock, I said, honestly, this is more for us than it is for you guys sometimes because we like to get out there and it fluffs our egos a little bit. And I said, frankly, if not for the people who participated in our weekly show and who listened to the podcast and messaged us on the side saying, hey man, thanks for the podcast, and something that simple, we would have given up a long time ago because you guys come out and say, hey man, you guys are awesome, thanks for what you guys do, appreciate it. We have a lot of fun, it's funny, we like watching or whatever. So we keep doing it for that reason alone, not because we make any money off of it. But if you so choose to donate to the show, hit me up in the direct messages or whatever, or buy one of our products on the Redbubble site. But if you hit me up and you just want to donate and throw a couple bucks our way, that's cool too. Just hit me up on the side and I'll give you the information. Otherwise, thank you again for coming out. Had a great time listening to V talk for once with some science-backed information versus like normally when I like headline and I'm the ringleader or whatever, and I'm just like, oh, Bigfoot's penis and oh, aliens putting their fingers inside me and all that crazy stuff. He's brought some really cool information, and I encourage you to check more into it because we touched on it just a little bit, the 2045 initiative, but there's so much more to it. And like he said, the ethical and a moral and theological, and I know Mike, it was very heavy in the chat talking about theological, which I appreciate because Mike, I'm right there with you. I have the same issues. But thanks again, Critter Me Timbers, Jay Coop, James Pregler. Who else did we have in the chat? Didn't see Megabit, and I'm going to call him out on that in a little bit.
I saw Let's Fish already.
Yeah, Let's Fish already. He was in there too. Thank you guys for being very vocal in the chat and, yucking it up with us. We appreciate you guys coming out, and we will see you guys next week.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.